Hello. We're about to go for a ride at the hills. We're here with a pretty mad crew. We're going out in this 41-degree heat with the R-Block crew.
Mitchell has got his crash. There's a big fall in the middle of the field.
Race is on. It is technical. It's going to be fast and furious.
The tactical game has started. This is a classic move.
Great attack here.
Out of the saddle. She's closing in.
The acceleration could not be matched.
The race is on for stage honours.
And they've opened up the sprint.
This could set them alight. She will collect the leader's jersey if she can hold on.
Absolutely sensational.
On day one, the National Road Series riders, they put the international stars into the shadow, as it was Peter Mullins who shone and won the first stage. Bike Exchange Stage 2, will those who represented Australia in Europe be able to bounce back and get the better of the local heroes? Hello and welcome to the Santos Festival of Cycling. Matthew Keenan with you, joined by triple green jersey winner of the Tour de France, Robbie McEwen, and dual Olympic Games gold medalist, Anna Mears. Anna, yesterday we saw just how strong the racing is in the National Road Series, with many of those riders proving to be the strongest.
It was an incredible day of racing for Zip Track Stage 1 of the Women's Santos Festival of Cycling. It was a day anticipated for the sprinters, but it turned out anything but. There was lots of aggression, lots of attacks, and we saw a reduced bunch finish, which was perhaps caught out our only World Trade Tour team in Bike Exchange.
In addition to that, though, Robbie, we saw two youngsters in particular riding here with the national team, the Garmin Australian national team. Sarah Gigante, we know a lot about her. She's only 20. Neve Bradbury, she's just 18 years of age. These two are athletes we'll be talking about for a long time to come.
We're going to learn so much more about them, that they are already at the top level. It was really impressive to see the way they tackled the race. They took on the older, more experienced riders, and riders who thought even themselves that they were stronger than the youngsters. But this race is very special this year with everything we've gone through over the last 12 months. And the NRS riders, the national level riders, are acquitting themselves very, very well. But what stood out for me yesterday was, I think the course was heavily underestimated. The heat played a big factor, and the National Road Series riders, they're really leaning heavily on the racing they did late November. They've got a big head start form-wise over the World Tour type riders, and it's exciting to watch.
They're making the most of it. Let's take a look at what did happen yesterday on Zip Track Stage 1. It started in a beautiful location. It was Seppeltsfield Winery, and I think, Anna, it would have been tough to leave.
Oh, it would have been very tough to leave. We saw beautiful scenes here as the riders in the peloton headed out from Seppeltsfield Winery. Long neutral, but as soon as that flag dropped, the attacks came thick and fast, and the first move came from Kirsty Deacon from Verus Racing. No one joined her. It was a long solo ride.
She spent a long time out there on her own, Robbie, but as she was going over the top of the Queen of the Mountains point, getting to the back end of the race, Alana Forster joined her.
And this was a really strong move by Dr. Alana Forster, riding here as an individual. She signed to a UCI trade team in the UK, but taking part here as an individual didn't worry her. Went out on her own and made a really good fist of it, but she was caught in the finale.
Last time up the climb she was caught was Grace Brown, who was forcing the action. She was later distance. In the sprint finish, Peter Mullins, experience, you can't buy. Timing to perfection.
She lined them up, she knocked them down, she flew out of the slipstream along the barriers, and apart from being really savvy tactically, she was just the strongest. When you look at the sprint itself, she just looks so much more powerful than all the rest, and a very deserved stage win for the multi-discipline rider Peter Mullins, off the mountain bike onto the road, and she's in the leader's jersey.
She took the win ahead of Ruby Roseman Gannon. It was then Nicole Frayne in third position, Matilda Reynolds in fourth, Sarah Gigante, Neve Bradbury, the two that we spoke about, in fifth and sixth. Further down the list, there was only 13 riders in the front group. Holly Harris just at 11 seconds behind. 5 of the riders from that front group were from the one team, and that was the Specialised Women's Racing Team. Then a minute 12 back to the group that contained many of the riders from the Bike Exchange team, including pre-race favourite Grace Brown. And now for Grace Brown, her role changes away from being team leader to team support rider. And today, given that it's a 23-degree start, she might be going back to the team car to get a few water bottles.
I think so, yes. So certainly caught out was Team Bike Exchange. Even Lucy Kennedy said they were hoping Grace Brown could get across to that front group. But Lucy Kennedy on her own there. 23 degrees is a nice start to the day, Robbie, and preferable temperature for the ladies.
Perfect conditions if it was to stay like that all day, but it is going to heat up. We're going to go up and over 30 degrees out in the hills there, up to around 32 in Lobethal. So it's going to be a hot one.
Bike Exchange Stage 2, it starts at Birdwood, makes its way through to Lobethal, and this is a stage of 97.3 kilometres, so this is the longest stage of the race. It's not as mountainous per se, in terms of no big climbs. There's one climb in the race for the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification up Hawthorn climb, but Anna, there's no flat roads either.
This is a very lumpy, hilly stage with a lot of undulations and a steep little 5% average climb up Hawthorn.
And later on in the stage, when they get towards the finish, it's not done yet. Even if the bunch is together coming into that last 5 to 7 kilometres, there's a couple of little launch pads that can be used for a late attack, a couple of tough little pinches. So the sprinters definitely won't have it all their own way. And there's a gravel section after 24 kilometres, almost 2 kilometres in length. Even if that doesn't do the damage to the bunch, the anxiety will be at an all-time high in this race because they'll all want to be starting at the front to stay safe.
This is the Specialised team that we spoke about in the results sheet. That is Di Francesco. They had 5 riders in the front group yesterday. That was an extraordinary performance. One person who could very well be looking forward to the gravel section is former Australian mountain bike champion, the race leader, Peter Mullins. Let's have a listen to what Peter Mullins had to say just a couple of moments ago.
Mountain bike champion of Victoria last week, leading the Festival of Cycling here in Adelaide this week. What a great start to the year.
Yeah, it is. I think 2020 was a bit of a rough one, and 2021 so far looks like it's going to pan out pretty well.
Tactically, brilliant finish yesterday. You really did know where the wind was coming from, when to attack. It seemed like there was hesitation in that sprint, but you just nailed it.
Yeah, I think sprints like that are always hard. We had a lot of the group swapping up as we led into the final, so there was sort of only 5 or 6 of us who were going to contend, and I don't know, for me, I think for all sprinters, the race sort of slows down, and we've got radio checks. The race sort of slows down, and it's a bit slow motion, and you have time to read the race. So I think I was just being patient and just watching, and yeah, I was able to do a really nice long sprint.
So today's stage, what are you expecting? Obviously, you've got the speed. Everyone's looking at you now in the leader's jersey. There's a really good chance you can get another stage win.
Yeah, I think we don't feel any pressure whatsoever at the moment in terms of the GC. I'm not racing for that. We've got Carly Taylor to go for GC. I'll aim for another stage win, and we hope that there's a little bit of aggression and something interesting for people to watch at home.
A lot of the focus had been on the Bike Exchange team, but as it turns out yesterday, first day of the year, tough race, and there was only one in Lucy Kennedy in the lead group. What do you think their tactics will be?
Yeah, I think that was just more of a testament to them being all in for one rider rather than their lack of strength or anything like that. I think it was more commitment to Lucy, and I think that in itself is a really good strength. They have some really good girls. They're world tour. I mean, you can't underestimate people like Grace Brown, and Alex Manley's been riding really, really well. So I expect one of them to do something really exciting today. I think they're kind of playing it down a little bit yesterday, only having Lucy in the lead group.
I will enjoy fantastic ride yesterday, and hope you have another good one today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, mate.
Well, Peter Mullins, in terms of the general classification, it's 2 seconds her advantage to Ruby Roseman Gannon, then 6 seconds to Nicole Frame. And you heard she hasn't given up on the prospect of others from Bike Exchange attacking. This is always one of the great features of the Tour Down Under, with Welcome to Country. And Robbie, I know that the international riders, when they do get to come here, it's a great opportunity for them to learn more about the Indigenous culture.
Yeah, it is a cultural experience for the Europeans when they come here, and even for the Australian athletes that get to experience this on a daily basis. Always a little bit different as well. I know when the Europeans come out here, they look forward to these cultural experiences, but also then we often see them in the race village handling some of the local wildlife that's brought in to show them, the snakes, koalas, etc., little joeys, and it's a big part of the Tour Down Under, and let's hope we're back on next year.
What I've really enjoyed about when it has been the Tour Down Under and they've had the Welcome to Country, the person that has been doing the speaking there has spoken about walking softly on the land, which for all of us is something that we can learn from, particularly with the potential of climate warming, etc. We're just a couple of moments away from getting this stage started. It'll be a short neutral zone today, much shorter than yesterday. And how does the length of the neutral zone impact on the start of the race?
The shorter it is, the less time you have to just get the legs going, but not too much.
So they're underway. Down there at the start line is Olympic Games gold medalist from Sydney 2000. He's also been doing the interviews for us. Scott McGrory, we're keen to get your thoughts on what might happen today.
Well, I can see behind me all the riders are just starting to get themselves composed and ready. Last little bits of attention being given. A lot of sunscreen going on, I noticed this morning, because it is the second day of racing for the year for the riders. And some of the Europeans that came back from Europe quite late at the end of last year haven't been out in the sun that much, so they're making sure that they're very well protected, not getting sunburned, because that actually plays a role in the coming days if they do get too affected by the sun. Heat stroke, obviously, we saw that in the men's race yesterday, playing a little bit of a role also. The talk, though, is Lucy Kennedy versus Sarah Gigante on the climb of Wollonga Hill tomorrow. Looking forward to that great showdown. But before that, we've got to get through this stage today. Fairly flat, a couple of little rolling hills in there as well, but it does look like it's much more suited to the sprinters, even more so than it was on stage one. Peter Mullins showed how crafty she is to get the stage win yesterday, but I still think Ruby Roseman Gannon is the outright fastest rider in this peloton. If she can get the finish set up right, then she should be able to come away with the stage win today. But that's the thing, isn't it? Peter Mullins, she played it perfectly yesterday, so she will certainly be in the mix. Also Matilda Reynolds, very fast sprinter, fourth on stage one. She's another one that's definitely going to be in the mix today. And Team Bike Exchange, they showed that they weren't as powerful as a collective group as perhaps we may thought coming into this stage, so we'll have to see what they can do. Sarah Roy would be their pick for the sprint at the end if it all comes back to a bunch sprint. But we're all ready to go. Big stage 2 here at the Santos Festival of Cycling.
Kimberly Conti is the race director. She's out of that lead vehicle. She's ready to drag the flag in to get the stage started. And Anna, I did note that the blue leader's jersey being worn by Peter Mullins directly behind that lead car was looking super relaxed. She saw a few spectators on the side of the road. She even had time and energy to give them a wave.
Giving a bit of a wave, yeah. Quite a few of the favourite names up front in this race neutral. You can see there Sarah Gigante in the bright yellow helmet, next to her Lucy Kennedy of Team Bike Exchange. And this race actually rolled out, interestingly enough, where bike meets motorcar from the National Motor Museum in Birdwood, and fair to say some of these ladies will be going faster than a few of those historic Holdens and Fords that they have there. Not at the moment.
There's Sarah Gigante in the Shimano Queen of the Mountains jersey. That's the white jersey with the light blue dots. In the navy blue jersey, just to Sarah's left, That is Kirsty Deacon, who was in the day-long breakaway yesterday. She leads the zip track sprint classification. And in the white colours, just to the left of the screen, drifting back a little bit, that's Alana Forster, who was awarded the most aggressive on yesterday's stage. She put in a big performance, getting herself off the front and spending the most important part of the race, really challenging the leaders, Rob.
She did, and she took a lot of chasing, but once the race really started to unfold the last time over the climb of Mengler Hill, well, we did see the strongest come to the fore. I was really quite surprised, as I think a lot of the riders would have been, to see Grace Brown not be able to follow that group over the top and then only have teammate Lucy Kennedy representing Bike Exchange. But as you mentioned earlier, Matt, 5 riders from the Specialised Women's Racing team made that front split. Now, talking of GC, they've got 5 options to try and get in a breakaway today, and any one of them could end up as a GC leader, so they would be well served to play the numbers.
Yeah, they could really put the Rock Salt team on the back foot trying to defend the leader's jersey, but it will also force the issue for Bike Exchange. The flag is underway. Guess who it is? Kirsty Deacon.
Familiar sight. She did it yesterday. They didn't react and she went straight away. This time it's race leader herself, Peter Mullins, who closes the gap.
Are you surprised to see the race leader closing the gap on somebody that is a fair way behind her?
Yes, I am a little bit, but, you know, Peter Mullins, she just was riding on feel. And we heard her in their interview with Scott that she just won the Victorian State Mountain Bike Championship a week ago. She's in hot form. She's ready to race and race all day. And she says, I'm not here to ride for GC. I don't believe her.
No, nor do I. She did say, Anna, immediately after the stage, yes, that's great to win. Now we look after Carly Taylor.
Yeah, she was quick to try and deflect some of that pressure and expectation, and it was, you know, such a great finish and tactical ride by Peter Mullins, but also too, you know, being a part owner of Rock Salt, she's out there saying, oh, all of our team, I want all of them to have a go. I want them to be really aggressive. I want them to be very attacking, and this is the perfect stage for that, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Surprised myself to see Kirsty Deacon wanting to have a bit of a dig straight up. She obviously feels okay after her solo stint yesterday.
What I like to hear from Peter Mullins, he says it often, I want to go out there and I want to have fun. I want to provide an exciting race and have fun. And it's always fun when you're the strongest and you're winning.
Winning is fun, exactly. And the Bike Exchange team riding up towards the front, that's Sarah Roy, who you can see in the new colours for that team, wearing the black helmet to the left of the screen, just checking across her shoulder. They have 5 riders in this race, as opposed to the likes of Specialised or Rock Salt, the team of the race leader, Peter Mullins. They have 7. The reason for that is coronavirus. A lot of their riders are back in Europe. Their Australian riders have stayed in Europe.
Yeah, they weren't able to get the full complement back here in Australia. And after yesterday, some people say they were surprised at the relative weakness compared to the expectations of the Bike Exchange team. But I think they just really were riding for 2 with limited resources. Only 5 riders said, OK, we're going to ride for Grace and for Lucy. They sacrificed the 3 others. All right, Grace didn't quite make the front group. But they also haven't raced yet this season until yesterday. These are World Tour riders. Their legs will come around really quickly. They could already see quite a big change through today and tomorrow and get stronger as the race goes on. And it's far from over. I think Lucy Kennedy will get better as well. And Grace Brown, she will be, I think, be thinking of revenge and trying to nab herself a stage win.
Is she out of it?
I think she's out of GC, yes. But a stage win would still be nice.
Yeah. And what about the fact that the gravel section today, it is a long way from the finish line. It's almost 2 kilometres in length. And if there's one question mark over Lucy Kennedy, it's the fact that she doesn't have as much experience as many of the riders in the race because she came to the sport later, having made the transition from athletics. The gravel could make it just a little bit nervous as Kirsty Deacon attacks the game. What are your thoughts on the gravel?
I don't think it'll be a huge factor overall on the stage, but as you said about Lucy Kennedy, she does tend to sometimes get a bit shuffled back in the peloton. If she starts a little bit too far behind, it does split, especially coming off the gravel, then we could find Bike Exchange on the back foot having to put things right and drag her back up to the front. So it's maybe an opportunity for other teams to put the team leader of Bike Exchange under pressure. As the attacks continue, an active start,
and we've seen Kirsty Deakin attacking from the Veris team. We've seen the bright yellow colours again from the Veris team up towards the front. I'm anticipating that could be Stephanie Corset, who just missed the front group yesterday. They've only got 3 riders in the race, Anna, and thus far they're proving to be the most active.
Indeed, and another rider I noticed up front that we didn't get to see too much of yesterday is number 24 for Team Garmin Australia, Ashley Nkudinoff. She was one of the favourites for yesterday's stage as well, so she's a bit more active up front today, which is good to see. And as we anticipated, lots of aggression, lots of attacks coming. You can see the roads start to narrow. These little sheltered sections from the trees will give some nice reprieve from the pending heat as we go through the race. But if any little attack can get away, there's a lot of twists and turns in these roads, and sometimes out of sight and out of mind might come and play a benefit role for anyone trying to get a breakaway.
We've got a very different situation today, being the second day, and the GC started to be set up, and obviously that front group of 13, they had a big gap on the next group, and a lot of riders dropped further back. There's opportunities for a break to form if it's the right combination of riders a long way down on GC. They can be let go. There's absolutely no reason to chase them. But what you often find is a few riders, they're down on GC, they get up the road, but there's always someone who's just within reach. It's a danger, and that can set things off back in the bunch.
Colours that we were seeing up towards the front were the magenta colours of the ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast team. That's the team of Ruby Roseman Gannon, who's in second position in the overall standings. When we did a race preview on Wednesday night, it was Sarah Gigante saying that Ruby could win this race because of time bonuses. And yesterday, Anna, we saw Ruby participate in the intermediate sprint to get a time bonus. Second on the stage, she got a small time bonus. She'll be looking for those intermediate sprints today, and there are 2 of them. The first one, that comes after 32 kilometres having been covered. The second one is much closer to the finish line, 85 k's into the stage.
Yeah, well, if last year's Santos Women's Tour Down Under is anything to go by, these time bonuses that they can pick up along the road are truly crucial to overall GC contendership, because only Ruth Winder won last year from just 5 seconds, so anything that they can collect will absolutely help to go towards the bank. Ruby Rose McGowan, favourite for today's stage, I think. Really look for her to be in the mix as we get towards the finish, but also I think wherever she's going to be, Sarah Gigante will also be.
Well, they've been riding together since they were 5-6 years of age, Robbie, and you can't help but get attracted to a familiar wheel to be able to follow.
Well, there's a definite rivalry between those two, but I think that's something that a rider like Peter Mullins, with her experience, and she'll be seeing everything that's going on and reading it, she'll feed off that little rivalry between those 2 young riders, Rose McGannon and Gigante. And I think, for mine, especially after seeing yesterday, Peter Mullins, with the form she's got, the sprint she's got, she climbs well, she's tactically great. I think she's the favourite for today's stage. Even though I think her team could be under a lot of pressure if they needed to defend something, chase a break, I think Peter Mullins is good enough to use the other teams up to her advantage.
Well, let's have a listen to the woman who's breathing down her neck in second position in the overall standings. Ruby Roseman Gannon spoke with Scott McGrory just before the stage started.
Ruby, second on stage 1, but I know that you would have been a little bit down on yourself. I think you've got the goods to get the win, and I feel that you're the favourite for today. How do you feel about stage 2?
Yeah, I really liked how stage 1 planned out. We were really happy with that split. We had 2 riders in there, and Anya worked really, really hard for me to keep that split there. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite pull it off. Peter is a very classy rider, and she just had it on the day, and yeah, I'm pretty hungry for today.
So what about the feeling within the peloton? It was a difficult stage yesterday, a little bit cooler for the ladies in the morning, so the temperature didn't play a big role. But what's the feeling like in the peloton, and how your legs feel in terms of the overall race?
I think everyone looked to Back Exchange to take control, and they did do that. But there's a lot of strong NRS riders at the moment who obviously are peaking right now. And they, up that climb it was pretty tough and really split the bunch. So I think a lot of riders will want to get away today and make up for yesterday.
Only Lucy Kennedy from Bike Exchange was in that lead group yesterday, so how does that change the tactics for today, with everybody perhaps not looking at Bike Exchange so much?
I think Back Exchange will probably want to get away and see what they can do for a stage win. But I think Lucy is still looking good for GC. Lucy and Sarah Gigante are both very good climbers for Wollonga tomorrow, so I think they probably won't be allowed to get away, but I think something else might be able to get away.
And that somebody right now who is trying to get away is one of the teammates of the race leader. Peter Mullins rides for Rock Salt. She's the race leader. She's got one of her strongest climbing teammates. This is Bree Wilson, who has gone off the front.
Bree Wilson is one of the strongest riders in the peloton. A very good climber. Yesterday, we saw her weakness was descending. She let the bunch in front of her go by a few lengths. That very quickly turned into 100 metres, 200, and suddenly she was in the second group. So she dropped herself out of the front group. So a good idea for her to go off and get a head start when she can, especially with the gravel coming up and some tricky little twisting roads, because there's hardly a metre of flat on this course. Lots of climbing to be done. Good idea to have her off the front, and it takes the pressure off her team of having to do the chasing, defending. Now the others can do it. Peter Mullins take a back seat and ride the slipstream.
So, Anna, a nice move of self-preservation.
Absolutely, and we heard from Peter Mullins at the start of this race in her pre-race interview was that she's all about entertainment, really, and all of her teammates, as we see another attack here from Giant Racing. It's Chelsea Holmes, number 71, and this is what really she wants. She wants the other teams to start making the move. They've sent their own teammate down the road. Perfect. She can have a nice little easy start to the race.
And Bree Wilson, she's at 1 minute and 12 behind on general classification. Chelsea Holmes is too. So there's riders with the possibility of slipping into a break. They're at a minute down, and under the right circumstances, they could really come back up and make themselves a threat on GC. But in reality, they'd have to win by a lot, because if they lost a minute 12 yesterday on that course around the Barossa, Wollonga Hill is going to find them out tomorrow.
But as you mentioned, Bree Wilson wasn't dropped on the climb. Bree Wilson was distanced on the technical aspect of the course, and she's aiming here to get a head start before they do hit the gravel. She's shortly going to be joined by Chelsea Holmes of Giant Racing, and that's good news for Bree.
It is good news. You don't want to see, and we saw yesterday with Kirsty Deegan, she spent over 40 kilometres out there on her own in a solo breakaway. To have some company to share the workload will certainly help Bree, as we see here. Chelsea Holmes about to make contact. And interesting too for Giant Racing Team, they're aligned with a non-for-profit organisation known as Dementia Project, and they're out here riding to help raise awareness and for knowledge of dementia. So lovely little connection there for Giant Racing Team, as we see here finally making contact.
I read a fictional book on dementia a little while ago, and it has left me much more aware of dementia and any of the organisations that do support research into it. It's called Still Alice. I can recommend it to anybody, and actually, in many respects, Anna, to be perfectly honest, it was quite a frightening book to read.
I'm sure it would be, and that's what you need. You need something to really kind of smack you in the face and get your attention so that you become aware of it.
It absolutely did. So Chelsea Holmes, in addition to riding for Giant Racing Team, she's riding for a great cause in raising awareness of dementia and further research into that. Bree Wilson will be pretty happy, Robbie. She's got company.
She's got company, and that's a good thing. 2 is better than 1, and cooperating well. Chelsea Holmes straight to the front, doing her share of the race. She came across that gap really strongly out of the bunch. Be interested to see what the reaction further behind is at the moment. And I think that will have caught a lot of the riders in the peloton a little bit off guard, that the race leader's teammate has gone up the road like this. It's really flipping the script of what we traditionally see when a team has the race leader's jersey.
The Advertiser, premier partner of the Santos Festival of Cycling, and Anna, as somebody who lives in Adelaide, the Advertiser has a really strong and important voice, and it's been a fabulous supporter for a long time of this event.
The coverage that they do offer truly is magnificent. They are a sport-loving paper, and they just love what happens within this community, and I think perfect for today too. We're going to be going through a lot of townships and communities that experienced fire ravaging at the end of 2019, start of 2020, and really both race directors, Kimberly Conti and Stuart O'Grady, wanted this race to visit those areas, and we want the local communities to go up and support the local businesses who have been struggling as a result of that.
Last year we really saw the impacts of the bushfires, and now this year, fortunately, we're starting to see that regeneration. But for a lot of us to see the imagery from the bushfires last year, it was really harrowing.
It was. I remember seeing last year during the race, they changed the course to go away from the worst affected areas, but the race helicopter with our cameras flew over and gave us a bit of an insight into the devastation that was caused by those fires through the Adelaide Hills. And it's great to see now that regrowth happening, the regeneration, not just of the trees in that bushland, but and here is a shot of it on screen. That's a year ago. We raced through even the edges of it, but not through the worst parts. The worst parts affected, you couldn't possibly race through it anyway. There were trees that had been burnt, really large trees roadside that were still falling over when the race was due to go through there, and that was why they had to make those changes. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it's recovered from 12 months ago.
And Anna, on the right-hand side of the screen, 2020, we saw the riders on the road, but the heroes were on the side of the road.
They were, the CFS volunteers, really working hard and putting their lives at risk to help save homes, help save lives, help save businesses, and what a remarkable group of people that they are.
And hopefully the race coming back into this region brings the economy back to life as well, with bike riders predominantly going to coffee shops and drinking plenty of coffee and getting some calories back in the system to make the ride back into the heart of Adelaide. With Bree Wilson in this move, a teammate of Peter Mullins, who is the overall race leader, which team back in the peloton does this put the most pressure on?
I think Bike Exchange, not necessarily because they're second or third on GC, because Lucy Kennedy isn't, but the rest of the peloton is going to look at it. They're still going to say, even after yesterday and how it panned out, they say, you're the World Tour team, you've got everything to lose here, so we're going to sit here and basically say it's up to you.
And the potential of this move really kind of backing them into a corner for only a stage win on the Wollonga stage tomorrow, stage 3, potentially could take them out of GC contention. So it certainly does pile the pressure onto them. Not the type of pressure I think they were expecting. And also ARA Pro Racing with Ruby Roseman Gannon might want to start paying attention to how far that time gap is between these two breakaway riders, as we have 87.9 kilometres to go on the second stage.
I think it puts ARA under a bit of pressure. We've got Chelsea Holmes here. Just behind her is Bree Wilson. Bree Wilson is a really good climber. We do know that. But for Ruby Roseman Gannon, she's spoken about a little bit of a lack of confidence to be able to go with the climbers tomorrow up Wollonga. So it's a big opportunity for her to win a stage. I actually thought she was faster and stronger than Peter Mullins yesterday. She just made a small tactical error in the last couple of 100 metres. She'll want to make the most of today's stage. And here they are, the riders that wearing the number 50, number 51 from that team. That is Alexandra Martin-Wallace.
And just
she's super experienced.
Just to the left of her, Matt, if you can see the saddlecloth there, rider number 43, Hayley Fuller. She hails from Dubbo Cycling Club, and she would be the youngest in the field, only 17 years of age and 3 months. What an experience for her.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be in an elite field like this. Gee, when I was 17, I hadn't even started cycling yet.
She rides here with the Sydney Uni Staminade team, and to rub shoulders with the national jerseys and riders like Ruby Roseman Gannon.
Yeah, fantastic experience, and to be in a peloton with a World Tour team like Bike Exchange, and she's acquitting herself very well. We saw that yesterday, and let's see how well she can support Ruby Roseman Gannon through the rest of this stage race.
Look at the front of the peloton. There are 3 dark jerseys of Rock Salt. That's the team of Peter Mullins, the overall race leader. But that's also the team of Bree Wilson, who's off the front in the break with Chelsea Holmes. They're playing the Bree Wilson card. This is really clever.
Well, they know that she is more than capable of going with the best riders on Wollonga Hill, but she's got herself at a deficit of 1 minute and 12 seconds after yesterday. So this is a ploy to try and get her back as a threat, a genuine threat on GC, see if she can get some time back. But a very long way to go, 86 kilometres, just 2 riders up there, and the biggest and generally accepted strongest team in the bunch hasn't done anything yet, Team Bike Exchange.
Not yet. Really, they're just making a show up front, blocking the road, not making any moves, taking off some of the space of the road for anyone that may want to make a move to bring this break back. And we also a bit reminiscent of Damien Howson yesterday in the Bike Exchange team. Wherever anyone went at the front, we saw him. So, exciting to see as we actually now see rider number 62. Again, familiar face, Kirsty Deacon.
And number 1 steps on it pretty quickly, Grace Brown.
Yep, straight away, Grace Brown. So she's marking the front of the peloton. There were 3 Bike Exchange riders up there, Sarah Roy and Jessica Allen there as well. Now, at the moment, it looks like they are content just to have 2 riders up the road. They feel that's a controllable situation, but they'd rather not have any more riders go across. I'm starting to get the impression they're already thinking about this gravel section at kilometre 24 that it starts. So at the front, and they're just going to try and look after their team leader at the moment, which is Lucy Kennedy, and think about the chase after that. But I think as the anxiety rises in the peloton as they approach the gravel, they're going to pull back a lot of time on these leading 2 and maybe even have them back in the fold by the time they hit it.
And potentially see some jostling here in the peloton for the riders who are a bit nervous about their bike handling skills to get through this gravel section. They might want to be up front, and then you might have riders that are very confident. They don't want those so-called nervous, twitchy riders in their way. So a little bit of positioning jostling as well.
Well, one rider who'll certainly be at home on the gravel is Peter Mullins. And there's another rider, I think, Isabella Flint, mountain biker, first road race, this Santos Festival of Cycling. She'll be pretty happy on the gravel as well. And another one, Sarah Roy. She's a classic specialist, the Australian rider from Mitchelton, from Bike Exchange rather. And she might be looking to do some damage if she gets the go-ahead.
Only a 20-minute drive from the CBD, the Adelaide Hills are home to some of South Australia's best food and wine. The most accessible nature experience in such a short trip from the city. Explore historical towns, sample an extensive range of local produce, taste craft beers, visit gin distilleries and much, much more. Head to Mount Lofty, pretty familiar destination with cyclists. It is the highest point of the southern Mount Lofty ranges, and it gives you views right across Adelaide, and you can appreciate the elevation, the diverse landscape, and you can even get a little look all the way out to the ocean. Mountain biking as well, and I know you've made the journey out onto the dirt, and in autumn the colours are exceptional, and a chance perhaps for you to take the easel out and do some landscape painting. Bike Exchange Stage 2 of the Santos Festival of Cycling. 2 riders off the front continuing to build their advantage. For the Rock Salt Attacker team, it is Bree Wilson, and for the Giant Racing Squad, it is Chelsea Holmes. Both of them find themselves at 1 minute and 22 seconds behind the overall race leader, which is Peter Mullins. And it highlights the importance of the time bonuses, because yesterday they were a minute and 12 behind on the road, but Peter won the stage, so she got a 10-second time bonus. We're now starting to see a chase get organised. The colours at the front, that's the Specialised Women's Racing team. That's the team of Matilda Reynolds, who finished in 4th position yesterday, and she is one of the favourites today. But yesterday, they were the strongest team. They had 5 riders in a front group of 13, yet they still didn't win the stage. And that is the beauty of cycling. It looks like, okay, they've got the numerical advantage. They should get the job done. I love the unpredictability of it.
Anything can happen, as we see the footage here of the peloton. You can actually see the undulation of the road. We're expecting a very lumpy stage today, not much flat at all. But for the specialised women's racing team to have 5 members in a reduced field of 13 in that last sprint showcases that even the ones with the strength can't quite nail it on the day.
Robbie, I just saw one rider the wrong side of the roundabout.
Yeah, someone just taking the long cut. Just it did narrow down there, and she just missed the apex of the corner, so flicked around the other side of the traffic island. She'll rejoin at the back of the peloton. Luckily for her, it's not a huge peloton. She'll be back at the front soon.
The tempo is really picking up. Is this the anticipation of the brilliantly designed Kimberley Conti course going in the hunt of some gravel?
I think at the moment it's just a counter-attack trying to get off the front, and it's, I think, one of the riders from VeloFit, the yellow, red and black colours, that acceleration. Number of riders going with it. Grace Brown marked it straight away, number 1, top of picture. Everything coming back together, but I think riders who will be getting nervous about the gravel, trying to skip away, take a lead before they get there. They've still got the 2-woman breakaway only just in their sights, well up the road.
Another rider that I know is very attentive towards the front again, and you spoke about her earlier on, from Team Garmin Australia, and that is Ashley Ann Kudinoff.
Yeah, she's very busy up the front, marking moves, perhaps even trying to get into a move herself. This is a stage that will also suit her, and after yesterday's stage, I think Team Garmin Australia would be very eager to get some results. But keep in mind too, they also have Sarah Gigante, who will be a contender up Wollonga tomorrow. They also have the young Neve Bradbury, only 21 days into being a senior rider. They've also got some really good sprinters in there as well, Loretta Hanson and Annette Edmondson, so they too have some cards to play. But as we saw yesterday, doesn't matter how many you have in the team, it's the execution of those tactics on the road.
There's the white colours of the Australian national team. That's Ashley Ann Kudinoff, the rider that we were just talking about a moment ago. They've been racing for a little over 25 minutes. The white colours on the left, that is Dr. Alana Forster. And Robbie, you spoke about the fact she's here as an individual, but she has a team to go to in the UK. I spoke to her last night. That team looks like folding because of the lack of racing last year with coronavirus and the impact on the businesses supporting that team. So Alana, unfortunately, she doesn't know what's happening for her in 2021. And she's been doing a fair bit of night shift work as an ED doctor up in Canberra.
Oh, sad to hear that the situation with her team, the dream comes true almost. You get to sign with a pro team and it all unravels. But here in the Santos Festival of Cycling, she's here racing as an individual, but I did see on her Instagram, she really thanked the Butterfields racing team for taking her in like one of their own. So they've sort of volunteered their services, their assistance, to help look after her during the race.
And Anna, you wouldn't be surprised to know that the director sportive from that team is Jenny McPherson.
Absolutely. You can see just at the top of the screen the red saddlecloth on the back of Alana Forster, 131, as the most aggressive rider from yesterday. We also see rider number 57 from ARA.
That's Holly Lubke. Now, this is her second series of road races. Her first one was the National Series at the end of 2020. So she doesn't have much experience on the road, but she could be a really important teammate in the next 20 kilometres supporting Ruby Rose McGannon when they hit the gravel. I did a ride with her on the Sunshine Coast late last year, and the things that she was doing on the dirt, I didn't quite understand how the bike was able to do that. It was incredible. And we were there with Paul van der Ploeg, who is a former world champion in the Eliminator, and his bike handling skills are world class through the roof. And she was pushing him all the way. And there was a couple of times Paul's eyebrows were raised.
Bit of excitement for a few of the women as they approach this gravel section then. I think there might be a few more tentative hearts in there.
I think there'll be a few nervous people in this peloton because there'll be some of them that their cycling career has been track and road or just road, and it's a different kind of a skill letting the bike flow and drift on gravel.
It certainly is, and even if you have the skills on a mountain bike or a gravel bike CX, you get on the road bike on those skinnier tyres with no tread, and even then when it starts to drift, it does give you that adrenaline rush, like almost because you're more prepared to push it to its limits, and you're so much closer to coming undone. And I'm looking forward to seeing it and what this road is like. Stuart O'Grady said yesterday it's fairly compacted, so it's not like it's a rough road, it's not corrugated, that sort of thing, but whenever you get a dirt road, no matter how compact it is in the middle, if you're starting to get out towards the edges, it always gets a little bit soft, and there's just that moment where it suddenly gives way and you're off into the bush before you know it.
And with the small tyres, the skinny tyres on a road bike, the margin for error is so much smaller than what it is on a mountain bike.
And the potential too for a dust kick-up. We've had some really hot weather here in Adelaide, and we anticipate some hot weather in the days to come. So if you are in the middle to the back of that peloton, potentially, the breathing becomes difficult, visualising, your ability to see can become impaired, bit of dust in the eye might just cause a little bit of distraction, so we want to hopefully make sure they all get through safely.
Brie Wilson at the front for the Rock Salt team. In second position for Giant Racing, that is Chelsea Holmes. Brie Wilson looks pretty comfortable at this point. We know she is a really strong climber. She had a good 2019, good 2020. She's been climbing well. She's been a part of this team for a while.
And she wears saddlecloth number 13, and the tradition of speculation there for good luck, bad luck is to pin one number correctly and one number upside down.
You superstitious at all?
I am superstitious, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have rituals to try and overcome those superstitions when you were racing?
I always wore black socks for time trialling. I always had things in a particular order, and I followed a particular order when I race. So I went left glove, right glove, jiggled the numbers on the skin suit, tipped the helmet, left glove, right glove. I don't know why. I did it every time at training. I did it every time at race day.
It's a little bit Rafael Nadal.
I'm not quite pulling the nicks out of my pants, though.
What about you, Robbie?
Not particularly. When I had number 13, I didn't turn it upside down. I just got on with it.
How was your performances when you had 13?
I actually don't know if I had little things that I did. Maybe I did and I didn't even realise. But I didn't have a mental checklist of I've got to do certain moves or check certain things.
It's funny though, it wasn't a mental checklist for me, like left glove, right glove, numbers, helmet, left glove, right glove. It just seemed to fall that way. I know riders who prefer to put their left shoe on it before their right shoe, and will not they flat refuse to go the other way around. It's interesting, some little quirks.
Yeah, I just pull on the one that was closest.
Brie Wilson out in front, along with Chelsea Holmes. They've now built up an advantage of 50 seconds. What about on a big day, Robbie, new socks?
Sometimes, but not as a general rule. If I got my washing back and the socks I'd worn the previous day were still in pretty good condition, look nice and clean, I just wear those again. In fact, I preferred not to wear brand new socks on a really long day. I wanted socks I'd already worn in once at least. They're just that little bit more comfortable.
The contact points are so important. Nicks, gloves, socks.
But on the other hand, I was happy to wear brand new Nicks.
Right.
Brand new chamois, just that little bit more comfort.
With Robbie's butt cream.
Yep, preferably.
Robbie has his own chamois cream, which makes life a little bit more comfortable on the undercarriage. I have noticed here with gravel on the course today, there's lots of riders in the peloton wearing black socks, which a couple of generations ago would not have happened. But Robbie today is wearing black socks in support of the gravel from the commentary position.
Correctamundo.
I'm bringing the...
And I didn't wear these yesterday. These are fresh ones today, but not brand new.
He's taking his shoes off as well. Anna is getting a little too comfortable.
They're getting more grip.
Look, the track sprinters, they just didn't wear socks sometimes either, which is a bit different too.
Our two leaders, Chelsea Holmes in second position. At the front is Brie Wilson. Brie Wilson is a teammate of Peter Mullins, who is the overall race leader. There used to be a rule that your sock in amateur cycling, when it was the pros and the amateurs, that the sock had to be predominantly white. And there was an occasion where Craig Newan, brother of Gary Newan, was pulled up on a start line and he had pink socks on. And they said, you have to wear predominantly white socks. He said, I am. But all they could see was pink. He took his shoe off and it was white foot, pink sleeve to the sock. He said, that's a predominantly white sock. Put his shoe back on and he rode the race.
Technicality win, check.
And this is an example of what we spoke about when we were looking at the profile for Bike Exchange Stage 2. There's not the major climb that we've got tomorrow, but there's no flat road either.
Now look here, watch Brie Wilson backs off. She is 6, 7 lengths, 8 lengths off. Every time they come to a corner, she's not leading. She backs off the rider in front, and now she has to chase back across. It's really ineffective as you're trying to cooperate, save your energy. It's wasting energy all day long. And you can see how nervous she is every time she gets to a corner, and that's why she was dropped yesterday out of the lead group.
It's momentum lost, it's energy that is wasted. A chance to have their first look at the finish line. Chelsea Holmes at the front, Brie Wilson in second position, and that corner, that is going to be crucial for the end of the race, and that's a good one to take a look at.
Yes, all riders will need to have their teams in order, their lead-out trains, to ensure they safely get around that corner, because as we could see, the finish line was not that far down the road, as we see the peloton coming up to the 200-metre mark to that finish line. Interestingly enough, when we talk about Brie Wilson, mountain biking really does present great bike handling skills, but the road bike tyres are just so much more narrow, so perhaps that's what's giving her a little bit of hesitation in the technical elements of this road circuit.
Well, that's Peter Mullins in the light blue jersey, the leader's jersey of the Santos Festival of Cycling, going through to the front. They're only now around 1.5 kilometres from the gravel section.
Well, Peter Mullins are up towards the front. We've got the ARA riders making their way towards the front as well to protect Ruby Roseman Gannon.
So that passage through the finish line came after 22.2 kilometres of racing, and the unsealed road starts at kilometre 24, so you'll start to see riders manoeuvring themselves to the front, teams trying to protect their leader. The pace will go up, and this will start to eat into the gap that our two breakaway riders have got.
Which is around about 1 minute when they went under the finish line gantry. And I think, Anna, that this is a really smart move from Brie Wilson to get a head start before the gravel. If she is caught at the end of the gravel and she's in the main peloton, it's been a success.
It has been a success if that's the case, and just the two of them away on their own will actually play a benefit to them as they go through this gravel section. They don't have the jostling of all the other riders around them to contend with, so good call for both riders.
Yeah, much more relaxed and less stressful ride, particularly on the approach to the gravel, and then you're able to choose your line. Sometimes on these unsealed roads, it's not a case of it's all uniform and it's all the same. You'll get softer little sections, maybe some tyre tracks, little broken sections, so you can choose your way, and it's much easier when you're out there in a small group.
74 kilometres remaining, 40 seconds now the advantage for the two leaders. The specialised women's team of Matilda Reynolds are moving to the front, but is it the team of Matilda Reynolds? They had 5 riders in the front group. It's the specialised team with multiple cards to play.
Well, Team Specialised Women's Racing with 5 riders in that group, in the front group yesterday. They really do have a lot of cards to play, and here it is, the unsealed road. You can just see those edges. They look softer. They're a little bit more dusty, a little bit more gravel sitting loose on it. It's not particularly bumpy. It's well compacted. But try telling that to the peloton. Don't be nervous. It's actually okay. They'll have none of it. They'll say, better to be safe than sorry. Get to the front.
A few little potholes there too that they're all going to have to navigate as we start to see the peloton just string out a little bit for people looking for a bit of distance from wheels in front of them.
And those potholes create a really high risk of punches. If you don't see the pothole and you go straight into it, you get a pinch puncher, and then you've got some chasing to do.
And what you tend to get on a road like this is where the cars have been driving across. The left and the right side are quite smooth, where the tyres have been rolling over it. The middle, you get a gathering of that gravel. You're going to swap sides, be very, very careful. You get caught up in that gravel in the centre part of the road, and then you're in trouble.
It's a specialised women's racing team at the front, pouring the pressure on. You can see the magenta colours of ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast also up towards the front. Our two leaders have been reeled back in. Brie Wilson, this is Chelsea Holmes, and there's the peloton.
And you can see it's not a flat section across this gravel either. They are climbing up this gravel road, but just that anxiety and the anticipation of this gravel sector has just really narrowed that gap, and they almost have them back within their grasp.
I still think it's energy well spent for Brie Wilson, number 13 in particular, getting a head start before this sector.
It is energy well spent, and if they do get gobbled up by the peloton, which we do anticipate will happen, expect more aggression and more attacks to come once they get over this gravel section.
What I'd like to see coming up from specialised women's racing is, after having 5 in yesterday's front group, they've got such numbers to play with it. They go on the attack, they use that numerical advantage and put the race under pressure.
This was a vision just a moment ago at the back of the race. We saw a few riders getting dropped. The pressure has been applied. The wearer of the Zip Track sprint classification jersey, Kirsty Deacon, she was one of the riders off the back. She was in the long breakaway yesterday. She was trying to break away this morning, and now she's paying the price.
Well, maybe those attempts to break away this morning were more a case of, I really need a head start for when the race gets hard. And you can see she's still paying the price for yesterday's efforts.
Her attitude is fantastic. To have been in the break for so long yesterday and trying to go on the move again today. Chelsea Holmes, number 71 from the Giant Live Racing team, looks so at ease on the bike.
She does, especially over this gravel section that many other riders may not feel as comfortable. We didn't see too many of the Giant Live Racing team yesterday. They don't have too many members. They only have 4. Talk about Team Bike Exchange having 5 members of their team. Giant Racing team and the women's only have 4. So good to see them in the mix today. Their DS is Nick Locandro.
You see the peloton fanning out across the road. I think this might be a case of, okay, this gravel is not as loose as we thought it might have been. We can stay calm.
They can stay calm, but they all want to stay at the front, which then eliminates staying calm because they're all trying to be up the front. It's the team of Ruby Rose McGannon. They're in charge at the front. Bike Exchange also up there. One of their riders in second position looks like Sarah Roy. Gap to the 2 breakaway riders of 15 seconds, so they can see them just in front. This will be one of those nervous moments when you go downhill on an unsealed road. I think they're almost at the end of it now.
And Sarah Gigante and Eve Bradbury, I noted those 2 riders at the very back of the peloton as they got off the gravel. They started at the front and they slowly drifted down through the group. They made the right decision starting at the front.
Always good to start at the front, never a bad idea, because at least you're there, you can decide if you want to go on the attack or you can just let yourself drift. And I think there'll be a lot of riders now quite relieved they're over that section. They've put it behind them. They may think to themselves, well, it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be.
15 seconds the advantage for the 2 leaders. Brie Wilson with a big flick of the elbow. Chelsea Holmes obliges. She goes through to the front. I wonder if the peloton will ease off and give them a bit more distance.
Just asking the same question to myself, and now that this gap is quite small, does anyone feel the urge to jump across? We have a problem here for number 74. That's Ella Falzarano from the Giant Racing team.
And she's one of the teammates of Chelsea Holmes, so they have plenty of action for the Giant team. Off the front, Chelsea, at the back, Falzarano, and once again, Robbie through the corner for Brie Wilson, and that wasn't particularly technical.
No, she just lost herself 5 lengths on the entry to the corner. A mechanical problem here for Falzarano, and it looks like the mechanic was working on the handlebars, maybe it come loose.
Yeah, it looks like that gravel section just may have shaken one of those Allen key bolts, tipped the handlebars down.
And we're sort of giving it that quick test. Oh, fast downhill section here, 66 kilometres an hour.
And that's not for the faint-hearted. It's at those moments that you don't look at the speedo to see how fast you're going. You just focus on what's ahead.
No, and this is the sort of thing that Brie Wilson doesn't like. It's yesterday coming off Mengler Hill, those high speeds, and then throw in a corner, and she found herself quickly off the back. So she's lost distance in every single corner, but certainly strong enough to ride herself back on. I know she is very strong. She's coming off last year. She was actually the Queen of the Mountain winner at My Grand Fondo on the Gold Coast, and she set a blistering time as an 8-kilometre climb of Springbrook. But more than her being the fastest woman up the climb, she was the 8th fastest overall, and there were a couple of NRS riders. There were guys who race in A grade in state road racing, and she was the 8th quickest. It was really impressive.
She is a strong climber, and I've seen a lot of her online racing, e-racing on the Zwift platform, and she's been really impressive there. 5 kilometres to the Zip Track Sprint. The classification currently being led by Kirsty Deacon, but Kirsty Deacon finds herself behind the peloton, chasing to try and get back on. Time for brunch for Brie Wilson.
Always a good time to refuel.
We talk about the energy wasted going through the corners and chasing to get back on, particularly in a stage race, Robbie. You know, I know you've spoken about this a lot. It is a race of energy conservation.
It is energy conservation and constant refuelling and topping up. You even see she coming through to the front to do her turn, but keeps just nibbling away, one hand on the handlebars to make sure she's fueling. It's easy to forget or neglect to do this when you're in a breakaway. You tend to get so consumed by, I'm off the front, we've got to be working hard, just forget to drink and eat properly.
Well, as they made their way through the gorgeous little town of Woodside, it might have been an opportunity for them to look at the cafes and the bakeries on the side of the road, and that's a reminder to eat. And she's active again.
Yes, rider number 24 from Team Garmin Australia. We've spoken about her already, Ashley Nkudinoff. She was busy in the racing of the Adelaide Track League on Tuesday night as a part of the Santos Festival of Cycling. She's been up front and looking to be in the moves, and she's just decided, I've got to do it myself.
It's a very good move by Nkudinoff. She's another of the riders, like the two are off the front, all at 1 minute and 12 seconds. They finished in that second group yesterday in Tanunda. So this is a great move by the rider from the Garmin Australia national team.
Yesterday I had her marked down as one of the favourites to win the stage because she is such a fast sprinter, but a lot of people, ourselves included, the riders, were caught by surprise as to how difficult the stage was into Tanunda yesterday, particularly at Mangler Hill. And Nkudinoff, though, after being distanced yesterday on the climbs, this is a great way to bounce back.
Yeah, we needed to see some moves from Team Garmin Australia as well, and this will also play into the hands of her teammate, Sarah Gigante, as we look forward to tomorrow's stage, which will be the Be Safe, Be Seen Wollonga Stage 3. And it'd be great if we could see Ashley Nkudinoff link up with Brie Wilson and Chelsea Holmes.
There's Chelsea Holmes at the front, Giant Racing Team. And Giant do a female-specific bike range, the Live Giant bikes, which the women in this race are riding. And in second position, it's Brie Wilson from Rock Salt Live SRAM. So they're riding the same brand of bike.
They are coming into the first intermediate sprint. The Zip Track intermediate sprints will be in Oakbank, and Oakbank is very famous for its steeplechase horse racing at the Easter Adelaide. It is an Easter tradition here in Adelaide.
Isn't your famous rival Victoria Pendleton doing steeple?
Yes. She is very much into becoming a jockey, loves her horses, and she actually said to me once, if I had found horse racing before I found cycling, I wouldn't have become a cyclist. I said, gee, I wish you had found horse racing before you became a cyclist.
We don't, because rivalries make sport. And Robbie, the rivalry between Anna Meares and Victoria Pendleton was the rivalry in track racing for a decade.
Yeah, champions have built out of great rivalries.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. With 2.5 kilometres to the Zip Track Sprint Intermediate number 1, I have to say, if it wasn't for Vicky Pendleton, I wouldn't have been as good as I was. So, thanks, Vicky. But you won't find me on the back of a horse.
I was going to say, you could maybe go out to Oakbank and get involved and turn up in the gates next to Vicky, say, hello, nice to see you again.
I'm back.
We should put a handicap race, put her on the horse and me on the bike.
That'll be fun.
I raced a horse once.
Did you?
Yeah, in Belgium. It was a trotting champion. Those things are incredibly fast. It was over almost 500 metres, took off at the same time. I won by a nose.
Oh, your nose or a horse nose?
Just mine. Stubby nose.
This is Ashley Nkudinoff now bridging across to the 2 leaders. This is a strong reinforcement. 2 becomes 3 out in front. And Nkudinoff riding for Team Garmin Australia. She's been a multiple world champion on the track, particularly in the team pursuit. She's one of the powerhouses of Australian track cycling. She got across that gap really quickly.
This is a great engine to introduce to the front breakaway with Brie Wilson and Chelsea Holmes. Like Luke Durbridge, she can go all day.
So she gets onto the back. The two out in front here, Chelsea Holmes in the fluoro colours, Brie Wilson, they should let her just recuperate for a little bit. Then she'll come through and she'll contribute and she'll make this breakaway in with a bigger chance of surviving.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. She's staying in third position for the now. 1 kilometre from the Zip Track Intermediate Sprint in Oakbank. 3, 2 and 1 seconds, and also 3, 2 and 1 points on offer. As we see that horse racing facility where they have the famous steeplechase,
which Anna-Mears just spoke about a moment ago. The gap is still rather slender. It's around about 20 seconds. And Kudanov, does she participate in the intermediate sprint?
I think yes. I think being up there as a track rider and the fast sprint, all little twitch as Brie Wilson went left, and Kudanov wasn't quite expecting that. Looking over the shoulder and Kudanov just to see how close that peloton is, if she needs to try and go forward and force the pace a little bit, but to get an impression of how far behind the peloton are, because Kudanov rode across that gap really pretty quickly, and it may be motivation for others to try the same trick.
Well, none of the riders in this leading group of three have points in the race for the Zip Track Sprint classification, which is currently led by Kirsty Deacon on 5 points. Win this intermediate sprint, you collect 3 points. So all of a sudden you're really quickly right into the mix and in with a chance to win one of the classifications. So Ashan Kudanov should very much go for it. But Chelsea Holmes is trying to catch it by surprise, and Kudanov, what a response. The horsepower kicks in, and Kudanov...
Well, looks like she's set up.
She did. In second position, Chelsea Holmes takes maximum points, and Kudanov, that was strange.
That was a little bit strange. She easily fended off the acceleration by Holmes initially, and then just sat down, stopped pedalling, and could be keen to hear the reason why she did that. But anyway, Chelsea Holmes first across the line, 3 points, 3 bonus seconds. But it would tell us, having this intermediate sprint here with Kirsty Deacon as the leader, why she was attacking so early in the stage, try and get off the front, see if she could defend that jersey, increase her lead. But all the points gobbled up by these three. But and Kudanov maybe just thought to herself, I might be better in just gifting this and keeping full cooperation in the group and thinking further ahead, thinking long-term, stage win.
Do you have any information on the tattoo on the left wrist of Ashley Ann Kudanov?
I don't. That's actually the first time I've seen it, because on the track they wear aerodynamic gloves that actually cover the wrist. So that's the first time I've seen that decoration for Ashan Kudanov. I will do some investigation into that for you, Maddie Keenan.
Excellent. Chelsea Holmes, number 71, she picked up 3 points in the race for the Zip Track Sprint classification. It was 2 points for Ashley Ann Kudanov from Team Garmin Australia, and 1 point to number 13, Brie Wilson of Rock Salt Liv Shram. Robbie, here's the sprint again. Chelsea went, Ashley had the legs, and then she let Chelsea win.
Just completely freewheeled and then just slotted herself in the wheel. So, yeah, very curious situation, but no explanation. Only she knows at the moment.
And now they're back into trying to continue to work together. They are inside 64 kilometres remaining. The gap was around about 20 seconds between the peloton and the breakaway of 2 when Ashley Ann Kudanov launched her attack out of that peloton to try and ride across. Back in the main peloton, there'll be no sprint for them because there are no points or time bonuses left up for grabs. In terms of the general classification, that 1 second time bonus going to number 13, Brie Wilson, that now moves her into outright 14th place at 1 minute and 11 seconds behind her teammate, the race leader, Peter Mullins.
Because that really leapfrogs her above all of the women who were in that main finishing bunch yesterday.
Yeah, they've almost been racing for an hour. See the physique of Ashley Ann Kudinoff. She just looks so powerful. She really does look like a track cyclist.
Yeah, lovely technique there for Ash and Kudinoff as we take a look back now at the main peloton, covering all the road there. Slight move to the right as we can see one of the riders thinking about an attack. Looks like rider number 44. Can you see that? 43 perhaps?
No, because that's would be the Sydney Unisnap
no, you're
team.
correct, yes.
And that is number 92, who we're now on board with. That is Pia Smith from the Step Forward IT Suzuki team.
Pia Smith, the Gold Coaster. So we've got a number of Gold Coasters in the field. Bree Wilson residing on the Gold Coast at the moment as well. Her partner, also a former NRS rider.
And Bree Wilson at the moment doing a fabulous job in the breakaway group of 3, along with Ashley Ann Kudinoff and Chelsea Holmes. Back in the main peloton, it's not clear who is going to do the chasing, but they're not concerned because this is one of the sections of the road, Anna, that gives them a chance to just take a look across to the right and see how the breakaway is travelling.
Yeah, they won't get too many chances to catch a glimpse or see that breakaway ahead of them. As we spoke earlier, lots of twists and turns and plenty of attacks now starting to come off the front of that peloton. And good timing too as they cross that train track and turn to sharp right.
They have about 14 kilometres before they get to the climb in the race for the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification. It's Hawthorn Climb, and it is quite steep. Notably here in second position is one of the real youngsters in the race. That is Neve Bradbury, wearing the jersey for the leader of the Best Young Rider classification.
Yeah, and we saw her in action yesterday with Sarah Gigante, and you spoke about the Hawthorn Climb for the Shimano Queen of the Mountain. That is up and coming. It has an average gradient of 5.2, but it also has a very, very steep section at the start before it starts to settle down and ease a little bit for those riders, but an average of 5.2 ahead of them.
And the top of that climb is just on 13 kilometres away. And again, we see a bit more action coming out of the peloton. This is the Velo Fit team out of WA. Reaction now coming from Bike Exchange. For the Bike Exchange team, with Lucy Kennedy, if they just get through today's stage, status quo, and there's no change in the overall standings, is that deemed as a success with Wollonga Hill to come tomorrow?
Yes. Yes, I think for Bike Exchange, keep Lucy Kennedy just exactly where she is, only behind on bonuses. But I think for a few other teams, with riders at 1 minute 12, get themselves in the break.
This vineyard that we're now making our way past, Robbie, the preference is, coming out of here, white wines, Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, Adelaide Hill, famous more so for its whites, but they do produce a lot of reds up here as well. Also, the cooler climate of the Adelaide Hills that lends itself to the growth of Pinot Noir, a notorious difficult grape, both to grow and to produce wine from, but when done well, it is delish.
Yep, I do agree. As I mentioned yesterday, Anna, when we go to restaurants, I don't even look at the wine list. Robbie knows my taste, and he just orders. And, for example, last night we had the opportunity to have quite a nice meal, and the menu came out, the wine menu went to Robbie, and I just asked him what I was having.
Have you ever considered a winery, Robbie? You have a Grand Fondo, Robbie McEwen Grand Fondo, the Robbie McEwen Winery?
No, I like other people's wineries.
You like the products.
They do all the work, I do all the drinking.
Yeah, he is the expert taster. The breakaway group, Ashley Ann Kudinoff at the front, Chelsea Holmes in second position, Bree Wilson in third spot. Back in the peloton, there's been a fair bit of work getting done by the Specialised Women's Racing team, and they have the fourth place finisher from yesterday, Matilda Reynolds, and Scott McGrory caught up with Matilda before the stage got started.
Fourth on day one, now it's day two, another opportunity for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's known as a sprint stage today, so I think it is a very, very technical finish. So it will be a very messy, hectic, intense end to the day, I think. But I think as we saw yesterday, no one could have predicted what happened with Team Bike Exchange not being fully represented in the end, and our Specialised Women's Racing team having 5 up the front. Certainly to have that many, it was disappointing to come fourth, but it's just an experience, and I learnt a lot from yesterday. I'm still only just 3 years into racing at this sort of level, and so yeah, you can't rush experience, unfortunately. And Peter Mullins was too classy yesterday and been doing it for a long time, and just such a smart racer. So hopefully take some key lessons from yesterday and apply them over the next 3 days.
One of the key things I took from that was not so much what she said, but how she said it. When she spoke about a hectic, messy, frantic, technical sprint finish, and there was a bit more excitement and joy in the sound of her voice.
Yeah, she definitely looked excited at the prospect of a messy, hectic finish, and Matilda Reynolds, she can find a way through the peloton. If she needs to make a little bit more room for herself, she certainly can. She's not shy to go with the old adage of rubbins racing, just a little bit.
The one thing that she lacks is that self-belief that I can beat all these women. And last year, Anna, we saw her finishing 3rd place on a stage. I spoke to her about that afterwards last year, and we spoke again last night. She said, yeah, I know, I need to have more self-belief. She's too humble.
She's too humble, she's too nice. And we do love to see those sprinters, one sitting to my left, flick that switch from turning off the nice and bringing out the not so nice. But
does he turn off the nice? I thought he had to turn the nice on.
Is that how his works? But Matilda Reynolds, interestingly, she said...
I don't have a nice, I just have a less nasty.
Interestingly, she was talking about the lack of experience and the disappointment to finish 5th and having 5 of her teammates there yesterday. Perhaps the chaotic nature of what could present today will lend to her advantage, because she won't have to think about utilising so much of that. She'll just have to react. So that might play an advantage for her.
But maybe there was too much time to think yesterday, with all her teammates contributing to the pace setting and trying to do the lead out, and then she comes out with only a 4th place in the end, out of the bonus seconds as well. It's a real disappointment for a sprinter when your teammates have laid it on the line. You feel really responsible, and you feel bad. It does get you down, and it can put a big dent in your morale, and you then feel a little bit reluctant to ask your teammates to do that again.
Her teammates will be volunteering to do that for her. They've got complete faith in her, and I'm sure that she will approach the stage finish day with confidence, having had a look at it. She does like the technical aspect of it.
Yeah, they went close, and they should certainly not give up. And I've heard a few of the riders say, with Peter Mullins, she's so very experienced, you can't beat experience. And no, you can't, but looking at yesterday, and when I watched that sprint over and over, Peter Mullins was just far and away the strongest. She was putting down the most power and all the way to the line. Rose McGannon was unable to get within 3 or 4 lengths, and I'm of the opinion that Peter Mullins can actually win this race. I think she's underselling herself.
Yeah. And within her team, they have Carly Taylor, who's on the return, and she was very good yesterday. And they're not too far away from heading into Harndorf, famous for its German heritage and famous for its sausages. And I don't think I ate enough breakfast this morning. The thought of Harndorf is making me hungry.
I'll tell you what, my tummy's rumbling just at the thoughts of that. And, one of the great meals that you can get up there, being the German tradition, is your pork knuckles and your stein of beer. And for the locals up there, I'm sure that they'll be enjoying that as the riders approach Harndorf.
Oz Cycling, major partner of the Santos Festival of Cycling. We spoke about the changes within Australian cycling, the formation of Oz Cycling yesterday. Let's ride it together is a great slogan. And Robbie, you said just a couple of moments ago you hadn't even started cycling at the age of 17. Yes, you had. You'd been racing BMXs for quite a while, and that's what Oz Cycling is all about. We're all one family.
Well, that's what it is now. I hadn't started cycling because I was a BMX racer, but now the beauty of Oz Cycling is a BMXer is a cyclist. A cyclist can go the other way and become a BMXer. You can race all disciplines on the one licence, and that is the big attraction of that, I think, especially for parents with juniors. Want to be able to let them try a lot of different things. I mean, let's face it, it is expensive to have a child involved in almost any sport, but cycling is one of those that has quite a sort of high entry level to get the equipment. as the riders race their way through Harndorf. Bree Wilson letting the wheel go again through the corners.
So this is energy now that she needs to. She loses momentum, has to spend that energy to close down the gap. That's energy that she can't use on the climb. And it's not as if she's deliberately doing it. And often when somebody takes up the sport a little bit later, and we're speaking about Lucy Kennedy in this regard, now the team leader for Bike Exchange, it doesn't come as naturally.
Well, in some ways, even Richie Port, we could put him in that category in terms of the descending and the risks and crashes and nerves that he has showcased in his career. It's
just something you have to work harder at and discover the techniques, get some coaching on those sort of things, as opposed to someone who's been doing it since they're a kid and just learning as they go, and it's just second nature.
It's like learning a language. You don't know you're learning it when you speaking two languages at home, for example, if you're a kid, and trying to pick it up much later is much more difficult.
And with Oz Cycling having all those disciplines under one banner now has certainly paid advantage to the Santos Festival of Cycling this year. We have all those disciplines on show. We have a mountain bike race happening today as well out at Eagle Mountain Bike Park in the Adelaide Hills. And it's actually a short cross-country race, short race format. So plenty of spectators can get out there to check that out as well.
Tomorrow afternoon there's a cyclocross race here on the fringe of the city, just across from the Adelaide Oval. And on Sunday at the Cove BMX Club, there's a BMX meeting Sunday morning as well. So plenty going on, all the disciplines, and that's the beauty of Oz Cycling. One licence, one fee, race whatever you want.
Well, we're about to go live with Kimberly Conti, the race director. Kimberly, have you got us?
I do. Good morning.
The wonders of modern technology. This is fabulous to be able to talk to you in the race director's car. Were you happy with the way the gravel was reasonably settled and the peloton got across there safely?
It was great. Yeah, I love adding those gravel sections in. I think it really adds an element of opportunity for the riders and a bit of fun.
In terms of the breakaway that we have today, we've got one of the riders of Peter Mullins' team, Bree Wilson, in that front group. Strategically, this is a pretty good move. Take your race director hat off now and talk to us about the bike race. This is a smart move by Roxol.
Yeah, it's really good. And it'll be, I was speaking to Peter last night on the phone. What a great win for her and the team yesterday. And I think she was a dark horse going in. So great opportunity. And Bree, don't underestimate her. She did so well even in things like the inaugural E-World Championship. She raced a beautiful race on that, and so good move for them here coming up to that climb, and it'll be really interesting to see how they hold that gap on the climb. First time we've used this climb, so I'm quite excited about it.
You tell us about the climb. What have they got in store?
They do, like I said, brand new climb, beautiful shaded area, but of course none of them are going to be looking at how beautiful that is. They're just going to be thinking about how hard the climb is. It's quite long. The benefit of this climb, though, is once you get over the top, you've got about 30 kilometers of descending and nice curvy roads, and again, that out of sight, out of mind mentality. If they can stay away here, they've got a great opportunity once they start heading back toward the finish.
And then the approach to the finish line, we heard from Matilda Reynolds before the stage got underway, and she likes the idea that it's quite a technical approach to the finish line at the end of the stage.
Yeah, it is indeed. Although at least they have seen it. They've already been through that technical area one time, so they would have seen that, and I know most of the team at Recon that as well. But yeah, coming down that uphill climb into Lobethal, and then a twisty descent all the way down, hard left-hand turn, and then of course we've got 600 meters of beautiful flat road for them to just sprint in on.
Well, Kimberly, thanks very much for your time. Be warned, now that we know that this technology works, we're probably going to call you each day.
Hey, that'd be great. Have a good day, you guys, and enjoy the race.
Thanks, Kimberly. Anna, Kimberly Conti, the race director, live from the passenger seat of the lead car.
Yeah, how great is it that we can have contact with her to get her feel of how the race is unfolding. It's certainly been unpredictable for us. I'm sure she anticipated that this potentially could happen as we see rider number 27, Loretta Hanson from Team Garmin Australia, performing domestic duties. She's shoving water bottles down the back of her jersey. She's got a food satchel there, and she'll perform the delivery of that role in making sure that her teammates have plenty of fresh, cool water. She'll make her way to find where her teammates are in this peloton, deliver some food to ensure that they are refueling and staying hydrated.
You can follow her on the right-hand side of the road in the Team Garmin Australia national colours. She just passes off some feed to Georgia Baker. Loretta Hanson, throughout the season, she rides for the Trek Segafredo team. She lives in Girona, and she spent a fair bit of time in lockdown last year throughout the Spanish lockdown. She'll be heading back to Girona after the national championships, and she's looking forward to rejoining her team. We're just under 5 kilometres away from the Queen of the Mountains, and Kimberly likes the idea of introducing new things to the race. She did that last year with the first introduction of some gravel into the race. The men will follow that leadership this year. She's setting the agenda. New climb, good for us, maybe not so good for the sprinters.
No, a little bit tough for the sprinters, of course, but it's good to find a balanced course that allows everybody an opportunity. One where the sprinters need to struggle, have a good ride to stay in touch. One that is not an out-and-out course for the climbers, but gives them an opportunity if they're good enough to attack and then maintain over the top. What you want is it's almost to work like a handicap race where you've got a little bit of everything that suits different riders, where it could potentially all come back together or just not quite, and give us commentators and cycling fans a really exciting finish. So I love the courses they're coming up with, and in future I'd love to see more gravel incorporated into the race. And I know Stuart O'Grady would love to do that. Huge fan of the classics, a former winner of Paris-Roubaix on the cobbles. No cobbles to be had down here, but certainly plenty of gravel roads. And we've actually raced on the gravel in the past in the Tour Down Under. Back in 2004, the Fleurieu Peninsula, we did a section of gravel in both directions. It was about 5k. It was a serious sector, and it looked fantastic on TV, and it really served to help break the race up. It was a really good addition, and I'd like to see them do that again.
It's become a lot more popular, particularly with the introduction of the Italian race, Strada Bianca, which has opened people's eyes to racing across gravel, but it's not a new thing. When cycling started, there were a lot of gravel roads, including going up the Col de Tourmalet on gravel.
Yeah, there were only gravel roads, so they were ahead of their time as hipsters.
Number 25, that is Sarah Gigante. She started the race as one of the big pre-race favourites. She was good yesterday, finishing in 5th position on the stage. She's 10 seconds down in the general classification. The good news for Sarah today is she has one teammate in the breakaway. That's Ashley Ann Kudanov. She had really great support yesterday from Neve Bradbury, one of the youngest riders in the race. And we've had to send the helicopter out to find her because we haven't really spotted her towards the front of the peloton. She's riding Sarah Gigante-like. She's riding conservatively, which is great.
It's good at the moment. And what I'd like to see towards the end of the stage, there's no true climbs in the final part of this stage, but there is a bit of a kicker in the last 10 kilometres where there's an opportunity for Sarah Gigante to go on the attack and put the sprinters under pressure.
We heard Sarah Gigante talk yesterday about, I didn't really think about tactics too much. I just liked that the road went up and I wanted to make it hard. And she's making that hard for specialised women's racing at the moment, causing some disruption in their training at the moment. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the yellow helmet of Sarah Gigante flanked by those green colours of specialised women's racing. And just to her left, you can see the maroon colours of ARA Pro Racing, Sunshine Coast. That is the team of Ruby Roseman-Gowan, as we see a move here by a rider from the South Australian Sports Institute team, marked by one of the ARA riders.
But they made a few moves yesterday. This is Amber Pate, who is trying to get herself off the front. Reaction coming from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. And the rider from them that has marked the move is a strong track cyclist. This is Alex Martin-Wallace, who we saw really active on Tuesday night at the Superdrome.
Well, she wasn't just active. I titled her the Menace on the Velodrome. We also see them joined by rider number 33, Elizabeth Stannard from Specialised Women's Racing.
And Stannard was one of the 5 riders from Specialised Women's Racing who was in the lead group yesterday. So she's just 10 seconds behind the blue Santos leaders jersey of Peter Mullins.
Probably why they haven't let her go Big response there from the peloton, strung out. The pace is really on.
Yeah, immediate reaction for anyone that finished in that front group yesterday. But interestingly, we've got 3 riders up the road who all finished in the second group at 1 minute and 12 seconds. Here's another counter-attack going off the front, and this is a really strong move.
This is Bike Exchange. Could this possibly be Grace Brown, who yesterday conceded time? She sits at 1 minute and 22 seconds down. This will force a reaction. Sure, she's at 1:22, but you cannot let her back into contention.
Trying to make amends for missing the move yesterday, and also perhaps trying to add another card to the deck that Team Bike Exchange can play. They do have a strong climber in Lucy Kennedy, but this is, as you said, Robbie, a strong move.
A strong move, and tactically good. You've seen other riders just try and blast their way off the front, but the timing of Grace Brown was perfect. There was a little attack, a counter-attack, then they chased it, but that was all on a slight downhill. Grace Brown came flying out of the wheels, waited till there was that slight hesitation, smashed over the top of them, used all that speed to open up a big gap as she tries to power her way across. I'm sure this has got to bring a reaction from behind.
And they're heading towards the base of Hawthorn Climb in the race for the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification, currently being led by Sarah Gigante. For Grace Brown, she looked a little vulnerable on the climb yesterday, but at the back end of last year, she finished in 5th position in the individual time trial at the World Championships. So a Grace Brown below par is still very dangerous.
Yeah, you can't allow her to go across, and there was that chase. That reaction was coming in the peloton. They went around that left-hand corner. They were really strung out. Just 1 kilometre to go for our lead group to the top of the Shimano Queen of the Mountain point for today, the Hawthorn Climb. And Grace Brown, well, she'll be able to see them just up in front, but the reaction was swift from behind. She may well get soaked back up into the peloton.
Number 24, that's Ashley Ann Kudanov. Number 13, Bree Wilson. Number 71, Chelsea Holmes. It was Chelsea Holmes and Bree Wilson who were away together for quite a while. Ashley Ann Kudanov from Team Garmin Australia, then bridged across through the intermediate sprint. It was Chelsea Holmes who collected maximum points. Now they're racing for polka dots onto the Queen of the Mountains. And Ann Kudanov, the track specialist, looks oh so strong.
Well, I wonder if they're aware at the moment of Grace Brown, who's coming across that gap. Be good to see what her progress is. These 3 just tapping out the rhythm at the moment. See who's the most interested in the Queen of the Mountain points. Bree Wilson, I would think probably the strongest climber out of this group. Although finished in the same group yesterday as Chelsea Holmes. But Bree Wilson was in the first group initially. She was with the best of the best over Mengler Hill. It was the descending that saw her shot out the back.
And you can hear all the horns. That's the hype of activity because they know there is progress from behind. They are clearing the gap between the break and the peloton.
And never a good sign when you see those cars be sent past. It's not just the presence of one rider. We saw Grace Brown trying to get across. It's the presence of the peloton. There's not room for the cars in between.
And amongst those reacting from the peloton, it is the leader of the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification. On the charge is Sarah Gigante. We just spoke about her playing a patient game. She loves to race.
Well, the road has just started to go up, and like she said, she just can't help herself sometimes.
I think in the wheel, I thought I saw the colours. Yep, fluoro yellow bike. Got to be Ruby Rose McGannon.
Well, they've been racing together since they were 5 or 6 years of age. The other possibility is Anya Lowe, the young Tasmanian climber. And Anya Lowe and Sarah Gigante raced against each other a lot throughout the juniors. They soak up the breakaway really, really quickly. And Gigante is proving to be the strongest climber. She's creating some gaps. Good response from Chelsea Holmes. 200 metres to the top. Gigante looking to extend her advantage in the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification. Bree Wilson is up to the task. We've seen how strong Bree is on the climbs. She just conceded the ground yesterday on the descents. Monstering a big gear up this climb is the youngster Sarah Gigante. A kick and a gouge from Chelsea Holmes to try and stay in contacts. Riding here for Team Garmin Australia, Sarah Gigante normally for the Tipco team out of the United States. This time it's with the Aussie colours on her back, and she collects more points for the Shimano Queen of the Mountains, and she wants to work with the brake, Robbie. She wants to force the hand of the race leader, Peter Mullins.
Well, that is just so Sarah Gigante. As I saw her coming up, I thought, well, they can't let her get too far in front and switch off and think, well, it's only for the points, because look back at just a couple of months ago, the Tour de Tweed back in November. Sarah Gigante attacked with 55 kilometres to go. It was a mountaintop finish. She was favoured as the best climber in the race. She took off with 55k to go and soloed and won by 7 minutes. She has it within her capabilities to rip this field completely apart. Holmes struggling to hold the wheel at the moment.
She was in the slipstream. Sarah had a couple of words of encouragement for her, and now Chelsea Holmes is potentially being put to the sword. That gap, it looks small, it feels enormous.
Got a question here from Kathleen Collis, Matt and Robbie, and for those of you at home who are watching, you can ask your questions. You use the hashtag TDU Festival. The question is, can you explain why Sarah Gigante is not riding in her TIBCO uniform for this race?
It's because she's a member of the Australian national team for this race. Her team, US-based, unable to be here. So as an individual rider from her team, she's been taken into the national team and she's wearing that jersey. And she's doing some damage in that jersey as well. Bree Wilson, she's managing to hold the wheel of Sarah Gigante. But Chelsea Holmes, she is starting to be distanced, and Gigante, she's hardly looking behind, and pretty soon she could well be on her own as Bree Wilson, she backs off through the corners. Here comes Holmes back to the wheel of Wilson. This could be the way she gets back up to Gigante, possibly.
This is some good descending by Chelsea Holmes to be able to close that gap. 67 kilometres per hour. Sarah Gigante is the rider who is forcing the issue, and Anna, I would anticipate that back in the main peloton, alarm bells will be going off.
They will certainly be going off. This is a great move for Team Garmin Australia as well, because her teammate, Sarah Gigante's teammate Ashane Kudinoff, could not go with this move. So, and again, Sarah Gigante out of the saddle. She is no holds barred at the moment. She doesn't care if these ladies can go with her or not. She knows she wants the pace high. She wants to feel the pain.
And we just heard from Kimberly Conti, wasn't it great to be able to get into the lead car with the race director? And she has told us that the next 30 kilometres, it's predominantly downhill. There's 47 kilometres remaining, and Sarah Gigante is racing as if they're 2Ks from the finish line.
Well, she's as unpredictable as they come. I mean, we know she loves to just attack when the road goes up.
I don't think she is.
Oh, she's getting predictable. She's going to attack at every possible moment.
Correct. And Bree Wilson, again, just a little bit of distance given through the corners. It will serve Sarah well if Bree sticks with her, because Bree looks very prepared to work, but I don't think that she should, because Bree finds herself at 1 minute and 12 seconds behind Sarah Gigante in the overall standings, and her teammate Peter Mullins is the race leader. So Bree, actually, she should just be sitting the wheel and not contributing, and psychologically slowing Sarah down. And actually, I think that is now what she is doing.
Well, it's a very bold move by Sarah Gigante, and if I was her team director, I'm not sure I'd be saying, yeah, go on with this one. It is splitting the field behind, we're hearing. But with Wollonga coming tomorrow, with her climbing prowess, I honestly think she'd be better served being a little more conservative, but it's just not how she races.
Wouldn't you rather this to be a problem, managing a rider, trying to get them just to back off a little bit, as opposed to trying to get them to go on the front foot? Now, number 13, Bree Wilson has gone through to the front. Does she ride a false tempo that actually slows them down?
Well, you could actually see there Sarah Gigante swung hard over to the right and used her hand to try and encourage the other two to roll through and help her. But no, if you're Peter Mullins' teammate Bree Wilson, you might just roll through, not actually continue with the pace, even cause some distortion and slow it down a little bit.
If I was Bree Wilson as Peter Mullins' teammate, I would sit on the back and say, up to you, this is my spot and I will not move from it.
Yep, and now her and Chelsea Holmes are seeing the gap open up. They've just watching as Sarah Gigante now is riding away. Bree Wilson, to play the key role for her teammate, actually needs to close that gap and be the psychological anchor to Sarah Gigante, but she's not able to do that. This is Sarah Gigante going solo. Extraordinary.
Well, just use that little pinch uphill to gap Chelsea Holmes, and Brie Wilson a little bit caught out there. The gap opened up, and by the time she looked over and passed Holmes, the gap was so big that she's going to have a lot of trouble to close that.
That happened so quickly. That gap is already out to around about 100 metres in the space of a handful of seconds.
Well, this again can change the race as we look forward to tomorrow's Be Safe, Be Seen Wollonga stage, where Sarah Gigante will be a big challenger to Lucy Kennedy. If she gets a time gap over Lucy Kennedy, if she burns too much energy and doesn't get enough time gap, how's that going to play out as this race progresses?
Sarah is Australia's most exciting cyclist at the moment.
I concur.
Her teammates, Lauren Stevens, the American, last night in chasing Cancellara, she won the virtual race. We had Fabian Cancellara, French leg. Fabian Cancellara was in it. Jens Voigt with a broken ankle was there, just riding in his runners. David McKenzie was also amongst it, as too was Rachel Neyland, Brodie Chapman.
Well, speaking of unpredictable riders, Jens Voigt, would you class him as an unpredictable rider, Robbie?
He was predictable. He'd just always attack, and it's a little bit like Jens, Sarah Gigante. She just saw an opportunity, took the points, and thought, well, I'm up here now, I might as well make everybody hurt. You see the damage behind the two riders who are with her, Wilson and Holmes. They are being further distanced. And Sarah Gigante, we know she's a great climber. We also know she's a fantastic time triallist. Australian time trial champion.
Yeah, she is. That was a huge performance. Grace Brown, who finished 5th at the World Championships, was in 2nd position in that time trial championship. And Amanda Spratt, one of the world's very best, was in 4th place. So that gives you some context as to how impressive the ride was by Sarah Gigante.
What an exciting prospect for an Australian women's cyclist going forward, to have so many feathers in her cap. This is a name to remember.
This is a super ride. We might not have to actually remember it, Anna. She's just going to keep reminding us.
Well, like at the start, you know, we have seen in her interviews, she is so bubbly, she is so delightful, she's almost giddy on occasions. Not any of that here. Now it's just aggression, it's focus, it's drive.
We have seen her a few times in the last couple of kilometres grabbing the chest, which is actually for the button to talk back to the team car. Donna Ray-Zielinski is driving the team car. She's calling the shots for the team, their sports director. I wonder what Donna would be saying to her now. I would love to be able to tune into that conversation.
Well, now that she's out there and in this situation, I think the team director would have to be saying, just let's keep updated on what's happening behind you, how many are chasing you, what the organisation level is like behind you, who's got teammates, and we'll take it just kilometre by kilometre. And I think if the organisation happens behind her and they're starting to eat into that gap, she should be told just to ease off. I mean, keep the powder dry maybe to later in the stage, and there's always tomorrow in Wollonga where she's favourite to win.
Here is what has happened so far, starting in Birdswood for Bike Exchange Stage 2, making its way through to Lobethal. They rolled out a fairly short neutral zone, but it didn't take long before the attacks got started. And the Rock Salt team, the team of the overall race leader, Peter Mullins, they took the initiative very early. So too did the wearer of the blue jersey, the Zip Track sprint classification. That was Kirsty Deakin, who was off the front for a long time yesterday. Chelsea Holmes then managed to get things going. She was joined by Brie Wilson. Maximum lead that they established was 50 seconds. Onto the gravel before being joined shortly thereafter by Ashley Ann Kudinoff. When Ann Kudinoff managed to come across and they headed through to the first of the Zip Track intermediate sprints, Ann Kudinoff was looking super strong. Number 24 from Team Garmin Australia. She jumped in reaction to the move by Chelsea Holmes, but then she just punched the clutch in strangely, and it enabled Chelsea Holmes to go over the top and collect maximum points. Then onto the Hawthorn climb, a new climb in the Tour Down Under, and it was Sarah Gigante bursting out of the peloton, bridging across to the breakaway very, very quickly. Wilson and Holmes were able to respond and stick with her at the top. It was Gigante collecting maximum points to extend her lead in the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification. And now Sarah Gigante has gone solo. The former breakaway companions, they couldn't stick with the Australian time trial champion for very long. And we're looking forward to seeing what Sarah Gigante can do over the closing 40 kilometres of Bike Exchange at Stage 2 in the Santos Festival of Cycling. Incredibly strong on the climb, riding the big chain ring all the way to the top. Just behind her, Chelsea Holmes in the small chain ring, pedaling the high cadence. And then as soon as she went over the top, Sarah Gigante asking the others to work with her. And now she has nobody to work with her because she's been too strong and she's gone social distancing.
Well, this is an engine that Brie Wilson and Chelsea Holmes could not keep up with. Unfortunately for Brie Wilson, she didn't anticipate the gap that could be created sitting on Chelsea Holmes' wheel in a line of 3. Sarah Gigante opened up the gap, and before she knew it, she was chasing Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. And she's just decided, well, instead of asking you to come and work with me, I'll just do it all on my own.
And she's doing a brilliant job of it. Showing plenty of maturity. She's staying on top of the nutrition. She keeps eating, she keeps drinking. And although she's only 20 years of age, she started riding down at the Brunswick Junior Clinic as a 6-year-old. And she's always had rule number 1, have fun. And as we spoke about yesterday, Robbie, winning is fun, and she's done a lot of it already in her young career.
And she seems to take enormous pleasure out of hurting everybody else's legs and morale. This is just such a long-range move. We know she's already got a long-range move to her credit in November at the Tour de Tweed. 55 kilometres, won by 7 minutes over the rest of the field. But this is a step up in class as well, to out of the typical NRS level, and to have a team like Bike Exchange, the World Tour team. And I'll be interested to see how they are approaching this attack by Sarah Gigante. If they say, okay, you've got a head full of steam, you've got yourself up the front, and they just let themselves get organised, give her a bit of a gap while they get the troops together. And now, what is the team of Peter Mullins doing behind this? Because she is race leader, defending.
And as we saw with the men's race yesterday in the Santos Festival of Cycling Stage 1, Luke Durbridge was able to hold off a large time gap. And 1 minute 12 in comparison is small.
Well, here we see the peloton behind, and that is the Specialised Women's Racing Team on the front.
Robbie, there's one from Specialised, one from Bike Exchange, one from Rock Salt, but that is not an organised chase. In fact, there are no Rock Salt riders there. That was another rider from the Specialised Women's Racing.
That was Matilda Reynolds in third wheel, swung across and looking for others to come forward. So she's trying to encourage others to get involved in the chase. And back there talking to teammates as well. And like you said, no sign of the team of Peter Mullins.
And in third position, you can see the white jersey for the best jump rider classification. That's Neve Bradbury, the 18-year-old, the teammate of Sarah Gigante. She is imposing herself as one of the youngest in the race at the front, trying to slow everybody down. And the gap already for Sarah Gigante, 1 minute and 5 seconds. This is really, really dangerous. If Bike Exchange want to win this race with Lucy Kennedy, they have to start chasing now.
Yeah, and they had to sacrifice the rest of the team. We saw Alexandra Manley up there. We need to have Jess Allen, Sarah Roy, Grace Brown, all hands on deck to form a chase. Even though they're not defending the leader's jersey, that's on the shoulder of Peter Mullins from Rock Salt Liv SRAM. Bike Exchange have got to take matters into their own hands, and it would be expected by the rest of the field. They're looking at them as the World Tour team. So your World Tour, you have to do it.
And interestingly, here we see Sarah Gigante out front on her own, but she has a lot of teammates in that front chasing peloton who won't be doing any of the work. Yesterday we saw Specialised Women's Racing with 5 of their teammates in that breakaway or that reduced finishing bunch. Let's see if Team Garmin Australia can do a better job of using all those teammates.
Well, Sarah Gigante, this is reminding me of Cadel Evans racing on the road in the mid to late 1990s and catching a lot of people by surprise, but nobody now should be caught by surprise by Sarah Gigante. This is the sort of move that we must expect from her.
Well, it almost seems like she's very Richie Porte-esque in the fact that it doesn't matter what they're going to anticipate from her, they just can't seem to go with her. Reaching into her back pocket there, looking for some food, keeping the nutrition up. Very important. The temperature's probably starting to rise to what's expected today, about 32, 33 degrees. It will get hotter tomorrow and on Sunday.
You spoke about the Garmin national team, and you can see there we've got Ashley Ann Kudanov sitting just behind the chasers. So too is Loretta Hansen, and they're playing that role that you mentioned. They're trying to just destroy the morale of the teams, hoping to organise the chase.
And you can see there just with that graphic, currently 27 degrees. A little bit cooler in the Adelaide Hills, obviously, than what they were expecting yesterday. We also see there from Team Bike Exchange, Lucy Kennedy.
She is the rider who is the protected rider for the Bike Exchange team, and she needs her teammates on the front right now trying to close down the gap. And she is talking on race radio. Can they get themselves organised?
Well, the question is how many of them are actually in this bunch. It has been thinned out, that it's split on that Hawthorn climb. It's not the complete peloton. Back up to the front. And Donna Ray-Zelinsky, she's up there having a chat with Sarah Gigante. Can't make out exactly what's being said, but it's not slow down, sit up and go back. That's for certain.
Yeah, I know what Donna does really well. In addition to all of this, she makes a mean chocolate brownie. I was lucky enough to bump into Donna at the airport on the way over to Adelaide, and she had some homemade chocolate brownie. She offered me a piece, to which, of course, I politely said yes. And then it was delicious. She offered me a second piece, and I thought the right thing to say would be no, because she'd done the little package for herself to have on the aeroplane. And I said yes. It was too good.
Well, a lot of the riders too would have their own little preferences of what food items they'd like to have in their back pockets and in the feeder bags that teammates will collect from the car. Robbie, what were some of your go-to items or strange things requested by teammates?
To get from the car in terms of snacks, I used to like to actually make up my own little secret snacks at breakfast. If we happened to be in the Tour de France, for example, they had crepes on the breakfast buffet. I'd grab a couple, I'd spread them with Nutella, I'd wrap them up in foil, I'd put them in my pocket for in the race. And always good for morale to have a really tasty snack, especially a couple of weeks in where you know you need to eat. You have to consume so much, but you just don't really feel like it. You just need something that is so appetising you actually enjoy eating it, and for me that was the Nutella crepes.
Yum. There certainly are times when food feels like cardboard. Sometimes it's easier to take on fluids and smoothies. So we see there, rider from South Australian Sports Institute in third wheel, taking on some fluids. Ashley Ann Kudanov there from the national team on her wheel. But it is a rider from Team Bike Exchange now on the front. That looks like
Grace Brown to me, who's at the front. The rider that was one of the revelations from that team at the back end of 2020.
So Lucy Kennedy does have a teammate with her in this reduced peloton, and they are taking the responsibility forward.
And I haven't spotted the blue jersey of Peter Mullins in this group. Now Specialised Women's Racing coming to the front. They had 5 riders in the front group yesterday. All the outdoor adventures make for magical experiences, and Adelaide Hills, they're the logical choice for families to go and visit. With steam trains and a giant rocking horse, of course, there's the cuddly koalas, a chocolate factory, wide open spaces to run free, that Adelaide Hills will engage and entertain children of all ages. Bike Exchange Stage 2 of the Santos Festival of Cycling. The situation is they've already gone over the climb, the Hawthorn climb, and it was there where Sarah Gigante has thumped her fist on the table. This is a 97.3 kilometre stage from Birdwood through to Lobethal, and they're down to the final 35 Ks. It's more than a 1 minute advantage for the Australian individual time trial champion. She's extended her lead in the race for the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification, but she is now also the virtual race leader. We always say in commentary, don't panic, it doesn't help. Might be not too far away from the peloton hitting the panic button, Anna.
Yes, we see Grace Brown there from Team Bike Exchange on the front. Lots of green and gold stripes across the chest. You can see scattered through the remnants of this chase pack. They're not engaging because Sarah Gigante, as you said, doesn't happen very often, but she has thumped her fist. And she's taking it to all of the women today as we head into, ultimately soon we will be seeing Zip Track's Sprint Intermediate number 2. We have had one Shimano Queen of the Mountains, and Sarah Gigante solidified her position there.
And looking back through this peloton, we're on the search looking for the blue leaders jersey of Peter Mullins, and I have not been able to spot her in that group. 1 minute and 40 seconds the advantage for Sarah Gigante.
So much of this race so far, we're not even into the completion of day 2, and so much of this race has just not gone to plan, not gone to script. And that's compliments to race director Kimberly Conte for the creation of these routes that she's sending the women over in this year's Santos Festival of Cycling. As you can see, a great shot there of the helicopter, nice and low, bringing us these shots live on 7+.
For Rock Salt, I've seen number 13 at the back of the peloton. That's Brie Wilson, who was in the breakaway. She was caught by Sarah Gigante. She had her chance to stick with her. But Sarah, she didn't attack Brie Wilson. She just rode a little bit too quick for the other two in the breakaway up a small rise.
Yeah, she went up that small rise. It was actually Chelsea Holmes who was in the wheel. Wilson sitting at the back, as a good teammate should do, in service of the race leader, but just missed when that gap opened up, and it just went so quickly, and suddenly it was a couple of 100 metres and there was just no closing it.
Specialised Women Racing trying to nullify this move by Sarah Gigante, but every time check we're getting, the advantage is growing.
As you said, Matt, I also haven't been able to spot Peter Mullins as yet in that light blue Santos leaders jersey.
Which would explain why there's no Rock Salt riders at the front assisting with the chase.
We would anticipate that they will have gone backwards to find Peter Mullins. Will be also interesting to see where Carly Taylor is in the mix of that, because she will be in contention for tomorrow's Stage 3, and
she's there.
We've found her, we believe.
There she is, the blue jersey. So Peter Mullins has survived in that group. She has Carly Taylor with her, the rider number 12, who's just in front of her. So Peter Mullins, she's in the main peloton, but that blue leaders jersey is slipping off her shoulders and onto the shoulders of Sarah Gigante.
Well, I don't know about you, gentlemen, but I just breathed a sigh of relief that she's at least in this front-chasing group.
Also in the front-chasing group, Hayley Fuller.
The young 17-year-old from Dubbo Cycling Club, representing Sydney Uni Staminate team. Great to see her making the move.
That is a really good performance.
And being only 17 years of age, that will see her fall into the under-19 category. So to be racing in the mix of the open women here at the Santos Festival of Cycling is a wonderful performance to her.
Well, the Rock Salt team, they've really put the onus on Bike Exchange and Specialise. Peter Mullins, the race leader, she is in this group. She has spoken right from the very start that she's not here to race for the overall honours. She came here hunting a stage victory. She did that yesterday. They also have Carly Taylor that was in that front group with her yesterday. And for Carly Taylor making a return to racing after, I think, 4 years in retirement, it's been a great start. She'll be really targeting tomorrow's stage up Wollonga Hill.
Well, maybe retirement from competition. She certainly has spent some time on the online platform of Zwift.
Yeah, she's retired at 15,000 kilometres per year.
Exactly. And the one thing too from Peter Mullins, who, as we see here, the virtual leader on the road, Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia, continuing with her solo attack, is she just seems to like entertaining You know, it doesn't matter if it's her, if it's Carly Taylor, if it's Brie Wilson, someone from Rock Salt will be causing moves.
I was just having a thought that maybe even would go through Sarah Gigante's head. She look up and see that speed limit sign, 50. Okay, I'll just ride 50.
I better slow down. She is a powerhouse. She is a pocket rocket. There's not much of her. It's extraordinary the amount of power that she does produce. At number 56, that's Ruby Roseman Gannon. She was second on the stage yesterday, so second in the overall standings at 2 seconds behind Peter Mullins.
Number 43 next to her, that is the youngster Hayley Fuller that we were speaking about. Riding on the wheel there of very accomplished track rider Ashley Ann Kudinoff, multiple world champion with the saddlecloth of number 24. And just moments ago I saw specialised rider number 32 Matilda Reynolds also moving forward. So some organisation needs to happen within this peloton to try and bring this gap back that Sarah Gigante just seems to, again like Luke Durbridge, just increasing and increasing.
She's like the palm trees that we saw yesterday, Robbie. The advantage for Sarah Gigante is growing, like the value of those palm trees have grown since they were planted in the Great Depression.
Well, you won't get one Sarah Gigante for 40,000.
No.
She's increasing her worth with every ride that she does. And, I mean, what a rider to have in your team. You can just sort of basically let her off the chain.
In terms of the Tokyo Olympics, she's not or before this race anyway, and still not to this day, she wasn't an absolute lock for a spot in the Olympic team because of her lack of international experience, and that was curtailed last year, not through her own doing because of the travel restrictions with COVID. A performance like this has to have the national selectors thinking, how can we not take her?
Yeah, you'd have to. And for a rider that's with the talent being displayed by Sarah Gigante, the engine that she's got, the harder the course, and the course in Tokyo is extremely difficult. They say it's really for the pure climbers. The harder the course, the less important experience and tactics is. If you're just the strongest, you can ride the rest out of the wheel uphill. That's good enough.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when it's really, really hard. See the fluoro yellow bike of Ruby Roseman Gannon. I've only spotted one teammate in this group for her from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast.
I think there's only two there from Rock Salt Live SRAM, along with Peter Mullins, Carly Taylor and Brie Wilson.
Yeah.
They're not contributing to the chase. Now, is it tactics that they think, well, we'll just sit back and let the other team soak up the pressure and think that we're not capable? Or really, they're relying on Carly Taylor being their rider for Wollonga Hill. Peter Mullins try and do her best. Brie Wilson, she's already had a crack off the front, so they're left with no choice.
Well, Grace Brown is on the front. Perhaps they've just conceded across at Rock Salt that they're not catching Sarah Gigante. So let's look forward to Wollonga Hill and win that stage tomorrow, the final stage perhaps at Vic Park. Sarah Gigante and Grace Brown, they were teammates together on the Holden women's racing team. Sarah Gigante's been teammates also with Ruby Roseman Gannon in national teams and junior Victorian teams at national championships. Sarah's been a teammate with Peter Mullins, so she knows all of her rivals really, really well. And today, she's got their mark.
She's got their mark and then some. They're certainly having to do the hard yards here, chasing her down. Grace Brown doing the turn of speed on the front for Team Bike Exchange. Obviously trying to bring back some of this gap that Sarah Gigante has enforced on this women's race so that Lucy Kennedy can be in contention for racing tomorrow up Wollonga, even though she could be in contention for the stage, but overall GC.
Robbie, today's stage, tactically, has been quite curious.
It has been curious right from the start. I mean, we saw a normal sort of scenario, a couple of riders getting up the road, but everything that's happened after that has been quite a surprise. Let's talk some tactics. I mean, we're looking at our race leader, Peter Mullins. He's in the light blue Santos leader's jersey. Now, we expected their team to take on the responsibility of defending that jersey and try and take the race into their hands, maybe with the help of Bike Exchange. But once Sarah Gigante went on the attack, it's like all the normal rules have gone out the window. It was, I think, even knowing the aggressive nature of Sarah Gigante's racing, they have been taken by surprise, the attack over the top of the Hawthorn climb. And now, tactically, Roxalt don't have the numbers in the bunch to contribute to a big chase, and Peter Mullins, maybe she's going to stick to it and say, listen, we're not the favourite, I'm not here to win GC, so they're just going to let it fall on the shoulders of the other teams. But could it be a tactical masterpiece that the other teams take the bait? Bike Exchange, Specialised Women's Racing, they do all the work. They maybe eventually pull back Sarah Gigante. It's not looking likely at the moment, so it could blow up on Peter Mullins and Roxalt. But if they happen to bring her back, it would be a free ride back to the front of the race for Peter Mullins. It would be tactically brilliant, but I'm not so sure it's that calculated. I think Sarah Gigante has just caught everybody on the hop, and she is just powering away.
Caught everybody on the hop. If you were in the place of Peter Mullins, what tactics would you employ?
I'd be trying to put at least one teammate. I think they're there with three, with Brie Wilson and Carly Taylor. I think save Carly Taylor for the Wollonga stage tomorrow, but I would contribute to the chase. As the race leader, I think you're almost obliged to do it, but obviously they think otherwise. Brie Wilson hasn't had the easiest of rides, being off the front since almost the start of the race as well. If it does get all brought back together, it's a big thanks to Specialised Women's Racing, who had 5 in the front group yesterday into the finish at Tanunda. And at the moment, it seems Grace Brown has just dropped a bit further back, away from the front of the race. So I think there may be a bit of capitulation, and that Sarah Gigante is just going to continue to open this gap. Another rider coming forward now for Specialised Women's Racing, so full commitment from them.
And they will be looking forward to that Zip Track Intermediate Sprint number 2 into Oakbank, which for the women is only 12 kilometres from the finish line, as we have some lovely footage here over the hayfields of the peloton as they come through.
It gives you a really good sense of the pace of the peloton. I mean, they really are flying along. And with 30 kilometres to go, we're in the real finale of the race. But as fast as they are going, Sarah Gigante continues to ride further away. She is motoring.
30 kilometres remaining. The Specialised Women's Racing team have taken up the initiative. They've now put 3 riders on the front, and I like that they've said, OK, let's at least try, and they've pinned the ears back.
It looks to me like from Bike Exchange that Grace Brown is the only one there with Lucy Kennedy. The other 3 haven't been able to spot them, at least for the moment, and now no longer contributing to this chase.
We've spoken about the pressure for the Bike Exchange team coming into this race as Australia's #1 team. They race the biggest events right around the globe, and this is the Bike Exchange stage, and it's Sarah Gigante who is stealing the show.
One of the riders that we will get to know later this week in the paracycling, Darren Hicks, he always says pressure is a privilege, and it's great to see the Specialised Women's Cycling team not conceding this gap that has been imposed on them by Sarah Gigante. And we actually see the rider #1 saddlecloth there, Grace Brown, back in the field. Looks like she's reaching into her pockets, just refuelling, sitting behind members of that Team Garmin Australia national team, who are out in force in numbers, controlling this peloton.
Peloton strung out in single file. A strong chase by Specialised Women's Racing. The teammates of Matilda Reynolds, who is one of the favourites for today's stage, but they have their work cut out to try and close down a significant gap to Sarah Gigante. Our last time check had her approaching 1 minute and 30 seconds in front of the peloton.
And on behalf of Garmin, we have some race data from Peter Mullins. This is a replay of yesterday's sprint. You're powering to the finish line, Peter Mullins. We've got some of her power information from throughout the stage yesterday. Average wattage over the 100 kilometres of 190 watts. A normalised power that's taking out the freewheeling, taking out the dead spots, 220 watts. And that's for hours on end. Calories burnt for those at home, 1,500 calories. That's about 3 or 4 donuts in terms of your normal daily intake, which should be around 2,400 calories. She's burnt sort of 2/3 of that in just the stage itself, let alone the rest of the day. So that is a whole lot of work and takes a whole lot of recovery. And I'll be interested to see those numbers that we'll get, hopefully, from Sarah Gigante at the end of today. And look at the time gap, by the way, 2 minutes and 5 seconds lead.
So despite the chase from specialised women's racing, Gigante is continuing to extend her advantage. And that calorie burn, it varies as well based on your size. You know, you can spend the same amount of time out there. Sarah and I could do 2 hours out on the bike at our threshold effort, and I'm going to burn more calories than her because I'm bigger than her.
Yes, and same for your base metabolic rate too. Unfortunately, Robbie, when you said that Peter Mullins burnt 1,500 calories on that stage, that's what my base metabolic rate is for one day's intake without any exercise. Unfortunately, would love to be able to consume more. Unfortunately, as a sprinter, I would pack on the size otherwise. But yes, that refueling, recovering is so critical and so important. But also indicative of why these riders are so lean, because they have to burn the energy, they have to carry the mass over the hills. As a sprinter, you don't particularly, on the track anyway, have to worry about that.
To give you an indication of how much energy Matt Keenan puts into his commentary, he is lean as a bean, and I saw him consume 1,500 calories in one meal last night. I can't blame him. It was delicious. The hot stone and sort of cook your own steak in front of you, and Matt breathed his in and then went for seconds and dessert. And he's like a greyhound.
I was being polite. I was respecting the efforts of the chef by trying as many options that were available on the menu.
Like you were being polite with Donna Ray Zielinski's chocolate brownies.
This is correct.
Can't say no.
See, there's a theme.
Yeah. My kids call me compost. When there's anything on their plate they can't finish, Dad, your turn. Sarah Gigante, what she is eating at the moment is she's eating up the road, she's eating up her opposition, and she is spitting them out the back door. The smile has been wiped off her face by herself. It is a picture of concentration.
Little acknowledgement there.
She can't help herself.
How good is it to see someone just loving what they're doing, as we are seeing here with Sarah Gigante?
She is captain positive.
I'm almost expecting a little wave from her. Come on, Sarah. No, smile's all we're going to get, I think.
But there's a great shot of the intensity from Sarah Gigante with this effort. And just amazing way she's so lightly built, just the power she's producing, the output.
There it is.
Little smile, little acknowledgement of the camera. And great footage the camera picked up there. Big chainring, small cog. There's no more gearing on that bike that she could use. She is absolutely maxing out what she has at her disposal.
And that gives us an indication of how quickly she's going, Robbie. To be riding that sort of gear ratio, what types of speeds do you need to be doing?
Well, in that sort of gear on this road, it's maybe very slightly downhill, but I would estimate now she's travelling at somewhere around 42 kilometres an hour. But just watching, not just her cadence, but just the way she's pushing the pedals, you can tell a fatigued rider. They're not giving, they can't really push the pedals fully. It's not with absolutely everything, and you can just see she's just throwing absolutely everything at every single pedal stroke. There doesn't seem to be any element of fatigue. She's just smashing it.
And that pedal stroke, what sort of cadence range are we looking at, do you think, Robbie?
Well, she's munching those big gears. She's not right down at the bottom. She's just under halfway down the cassette as she keeps the nutrients, keeps the calories going in. That cadence is in the high 80s. But she is, for a girl who's very lightly built, so she doesn't put out big peak wattage, she rides a big gear. She can really grind a big gear. It's very impressive.
One of the entertaining elements of the lockdown in Melbourne in particular has been Sarah and her mum, Kerry. And it hasn't just been a case of Sarah doing lots of riding indoors. Her mum has as well. And her mum did an event that I think it was around about 17 or 18 hours on the bike in the lounge room. And her soigneur taking care of her was Sarah.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If Mum's doing 17, 18 hour events on the home trainer.
Absolutely fantastic. They're a great combination. And her brother was a good club cyclist as well, and he's been in the United States studying for quite a while. And when he came home last year, Sarah said, let's go and do plenty of bike riding together. he wanted to get back to the US as quickly as he could to recover. He was exhausted.
Back to the peloton, slightly strung out. You start to see that little arrowhead forming at the front. Looks like Grace Brown from Bike Exchange potentially back on the front. She's gone back, had a little bit of a sit in with the wheels, consumed some food and some fluids, and now back performing her role in support of Lucy Kennedy.
Do you think that they've given up on the prospect of catching Sarah and now it's just damage minimisation?
I do think they've got to that point now. I think initially they would have thought, let's just consolidate, get a few teams together, a few riders willing to ride on the front, and then we'll just eat into that gap and we'll drag her back in. But they've seen it just go the other way. It's got to be so demoralising.
It reminds me of Luke Durbridge yesterday.
It does. It does. And one of the riders I just noticed towards the back of this peloton is our most aggressive rider or most competitive rider from yesterday is Dr. Alana Forster. Now, she's on her own. She's an individual rider. She's got no team support here. She can, as we said, I think it was, she was acknowledged the Butterfields team where Jenny McPherson, who's the DS there, and she's the 3-time winner of the Tour Down Under criterium. She's also, been a part of the para program as a pilot cyclist. So wonderful to see her being taken in by the Butterfields racing team. But she's also missing out on that opportunity of a team over in the United Kingdom. And great to see her in the mix on her own here at the Santos Festival of Cycling.
We had a chat with her yesterday as part of the Talking Tour program down at the district, and she said, as an individual rider, this is the best team support I've ever had. Being taken care of by Jenny and the Butterfield squad. She wants to go to all races and is an individual with that freedom and have Jenny look after her. She's done well, Alana, to recover from her efforts yesterday. She was dropped towards the top end of that previous climb, Hawthorn climb, but she showed her fighting spirit. She has clawed her way back.
She certainly did, as we see here footage from the front. That actually looks like
it's Manley.
Alexandra Manley. Well, we've got more members of Team Bike Exchange there. I can see 4 sleeves. Alex Manley, Grace Brown, Lucy Kennedy. Is that Jessica Allen potentially, or Sarah Roy in there as well? Alex Manley coming across from the track program. She is a 2019 World Points Score champion. She's got some form in the legs. She's also a part of the Team Pursuit team. Now coming to the front and filling in her tour of duty for Team Bike Exchange.
Well, it's taken a little while to happen and get themselves in a position where they're able to come to the front and start setting the pace. But now it is a full team effort by the Bike Exchange team. But they're not taking any time back. It's actually the opposite. They've lost another 5 seconds over the last couple of kilometres. So Sarah Gigante, it doesn't matter to her who's chasing, how many there are. She just keeps pushing on and just edging her way further and further in front.
That's Lucy Kennedy, who is in second position. This is Australia's biggest team. The star rider Amanda Spratt, she's still overseas in Europe. She's at a training camp in Spain. But it's Sarah Gigante 1 out versus 5, and Sarah is winning.
She is winning. There's only 20 kilometres left of this Bike Exchange stage from Birdwood to Lobethal, with over 2 minutes gap to Sarah Gigante. They have left it too late. I wonder where the other riders from Team Bike Exchange have been.
Well, really been under pressure since that Hawthorn climb where Sarah Gigante just ripped the race apart. It had everybody on their limit. There were riders tried to follow her and were blown out of the wheel. It's had a lot of them in trouble, so it's taken a long time to get organised. And the question is it now too late? Over 2 minutes lead for Gigante and around 25 kilometres to go. Sarah Gigante against the world, and she's winning.
I think I'd back her too.
Yeah, I spoke before about reminding me of a young Cadel Evans, and part of the reason for that is a lot of the roads that she trains on are the same roads that Cadel Evans used to train on. She spends a lot of time in the King Lake area and around Arthur's Creek where Cadel grew up when he got into cycling, and hence the link between the two in terms of knowing that they ride on the same roads, but also the pure class and the performance and the strength. This is a huge ride by Sarah Gigante. We're trying to bring you as many time updates as we can. The last gap that we saw at 30 kilometres remaining was 2 minutes and 5 seconds at the advantage for Sarah Gigante.
See the peloton going under the freeway there. If you follow that up the Adelaide Hills, you'll get to the very famous Monarto Zoo, one of Phil's Liggett's favourite places, with the rhino program that they have out there.
He does a huge amount of work for protecting rhinos.
He sure does.
Amazing job. The Australian national team, you can see quite a few of those white jerseys with the green and gold stripe. They're the teammates of Sarah Gigante, and they'll be pretty happy that they can just sit at the front and play the role of the decoy. They're now just going through one of the green zones. This is a part of the course where the riders can drop their rubbish, the wrappers that they've had from their food, etc., as there are people there dedicated to do the clean-up. And if you drop it outside of the green zones, you get a hefty fine. There was actually a few riders yesterday who did get fines for various offences.
Riders coming around again through Harndorf as we see some of the local goats not too impressed by the peloton or the helicopter.
Not even those goats can climb as well as Sarah Gigante based on the way she clawed her way up Hawthorn Climb.
Potentially one of the greatest of all time could Sarah Gigante be. As we pan back to the riders as they ride through Harndorf, one of the great German towns in the Adelaide Hills. A lot of history there. A lot of the farmers used to come down to Adelaide City on their horse and wagons to deliver the produce, and you can take your family up there and pick some strawberries, pick some cherries. It's something that I'm really looking forward to with my daughter Evelyn when she gets a little bit older, as we see here rider from ARA Racing Sunshine Coast.
Is Anya Lowe, who's helping with the chasing. She was in the lead group yesterday.
And she was the rider who was in the wheel of Sarah Gigante when she went on the Hawthorn Climbs. It wasn't Ruby Roseman Gannon, it was Anya Lowe. And she stuck there for a long time until she finally just cracked with a couple of 100 metres to go.
Lucy Kennedy herself at the front for Bike Exchange, contributing to the chasing. She's the protected rider for Bike Exchange as they make their way into the beautiful town of Harndorf. There's plenty to enjoy in Harndorf, including the cheese at Utter Delights. There's handmade chocolates at Chocolate at number 5, cocktail or gin blending at master classes. That could be an opportunity to perhaps enjoy a long weekend. Enjoy one of the fabulous meals at the many German pubs in Harndorf. There are a couple of craft breweries as well with that German heritage. How could there not be? Plus, the wine cellar doors, there's a few of those down the main street. And the Lane Vineyard restaurants. Harndorf is a wonderful spot to go and visit. Beer, wine, cider, chocolate, cheese. How could you not go there for a visit? Of cycling. It is a race being dominated by Sarah Gigante. She has a lead of more than 2 minutes over the peloton. It's Bike Exchange, the team of Lucy Kennedy, who are doing the chasing, but so far it is having limited impact. Also contributing to the chasing, ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast, the teammates of Ruby Roseman Gannon, who started today's stage in second position. But the virtual race leader is Sarah Gigante. She's the leader of the Best Young Rider classification. She's the leader of the Shimano Queen of the Mountains classification. She's going to need an extra bag to get all those jerseys home.
Yes, this is almost a replication of what we saw yesterday from Luke Durbridge in the men's race. And we know that the men and women do pay attention to what's happening so that they can prepare themselves for what's ahead of them. And how exciting for young Sarah Gigante, only 20 years of age, already wearing the Shimano Queen of the Mountain jersey. potentially going to add the overall leaders jersey to her collection as well by the end of the day.
It's looking more than likely at this stage, and we spoke earlier about the potential of Sarah Gigante to force her way into the Olympic team, but with news just to hand, reports around the world saying the Tokyo Olympics are to be cancelled. That privately, out of the Japanese government, they are saying it will not go ahead. They're not prepared to try and have the Olympics this year. It's all over the internet on various news sites, and they are preparing themselves to bid for a 2032 Olympic Games. So at the moment is looking apparently very likely that it's about to be cancelled. If that's been leaked from Japanese government sources.
If that happens, Tokyo should get the Games. For
whenever they want.
Yeah.
Well, whenever they want, but 2032 does pose the challenge because Brisbane and the greater Brisbane area were really bidding hard for that. Yeah. My gut is just churning.
Everything just pushed back 4 years, and I think it would be a logical choice. When you see Japan is in an emergency lockdown, there's been 4,700 deaths in Japan from coronavirus. There's been 347,000 cases in Tokyo alone. They just can't see a way of making it happen, and that's what's going around news sites across the world. And the IOC, some are saying they still insist it will go ahead. The Japanese sources saying it's a no-go.
Back to the front of the race, and is it a no-go to collect Sarah Gigante? This chase is really heating up. Bike Exchange now have themselves well organised. They're getting some support from ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast. Specialised are also there amongst it. But Anna Roxalt, the team of the leader, Peter Mullins, they're not playing that game.
No, they're not. They're really relying on Team Bike Exchange to get this organisation underway, and it's been something that we have missed thus far. The pressure that Sarah Gigante put on this peloton as a result of going up Hawthorn Climb has really seen the decimation of the peloton, and perhaps true to her word, Peter Mullins is now performing the role of support for her teammate Carly Taylor, who we expect to be one of the big challenges going up Wollonga tomorrow.
Well, they said after yesterday winning the stage was fantastic, taking the leader's jersey. Mullins said, well, I'm not here to win the GC. Maybe that is true. We'll only find out later she's just being cagey. We'll really know tomorrow when they get onto Wollonga Hill. But if they happen to be able to take Sarah Gigante back, it'll be a tactical masterpiece by Roxalt, having not contributed to the chase. But it doesn't look like it's going to go that way.
The next major opportunity for Sarah Gigante is the Zip Track Sprint. That's the second of the sprints. That's in Oakbank, which comes with 12.3 kilometres remaining. The last time check we had, it was at 2 minutes. We're trying to get an update for you on the gap between Sarah and the peloton. Even if she survives, which I think she will based on what we've seen so far, how much of a price does she pay tomorrow heading towards Wollonga? And how much of a gap does she need then to be able to defend?
Yeah, well, this will test the powers of recovery of Sarah Gigante. A ride like this, a long solo.
One thing in her favour, though, is it is a relatively short stage for the women tomorrow. Only one lap around the circuit at Aldinga Beach. Approximately 48 kilometres for tomorrow's stage for the ladies, but they do have the added challenge of heat tomorrow. They are expecting a top temperature of 39 degrees, so there are a lot of key elements that can come into play to affect both the advantage and disadvantage of today's performance by Sarah Gigante.
You'd much rather be on the time schedule for the women's race than the men's race tomorrow. Starting early, Sarah will be happy about that. 200 metres to the sprint. So Sarah Gigante is inside, 12.5 kilometres remaining. Significantly, there is a 3-second time bonus here. Sarah Gigante, she won't be sprinting. She's got nobody to sprint against. She just keeps on doing her individual time trial. These are her first points in the race for the Zip Track Sprint classification. If she wins the stage, she'll pick up more points, and she could potentially, mathematically, take the lead in every classification today.
Well, like you said, I hope she's packed light, because she's going to be taking home quite a bit of souvenirs and trophies and prizes with her. As we look down to her running gear there, in the middle of the cassette, quite comfortable, not quite downhill, not quite flat, keeping the fluids up. now that intermediate zip track sprint number 2 has been. There is only 12 kilometres to the finish for Sarah Gigante. We see here now the main peloton well and truly strung out.
It's the peloton under the guidance of Bike Exchange, ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast and Specialised Women's Racing. They're heading towards Oakbank and the second of the zip track intermediate sprints, and there we'll be able to get a good time check as to Sarah Gigante's advantage. They're still not there yet. Sarah went through around about 1 minute ago. Now the gap is at 2:25. So despite all the chasing from Australia's biggest team, with 5 riders participating, Sarah is extending.
Over the last 8 kilometres or so, she's added another 15, 20 seconds to that lead. So they're well organised behind. There's multiple teams, Specialised Women's Racing, ARA Sunshine Coast, Bike Exchange, plenty of riders prepared to come forward and do the chasing, and she just edges further and further away. And when they get to see that time check board from the motorbike, it's just got to be so demoralising for them. They're giving it everything they can, each one of them, when they hit the front. And it's 5 against 1, making absolutely no impression.
Getting this time gap will cause a puncture of morale, not of tyres. This will hurt when they see how big the gap is. The sprint is on. Ruby Roseman Gannon looking to collect points in the race for the zip track sprint classification. Also, the small 2-second time bonus. She gets there first. Matilda Reynolds, that was the next across the line.
Look at the turn of speed that Ruby Roseman Gannon was able to showcase there. She's just not in the position at the end of this stage that she truly would have wanted to be. And we were anticipating this could have been a stage for her, but Sarah Gigante, well, she had other plans.
So in terms of the zip track sprint classification, Ruby Roseman Gannon is now the outright leader. She's on 6 points. Kirsty Deacon is on 5 points. Sarah Gigante is on 3 points, but if she wins the stage, she'll go to 6 points, and Ruby Roseman Gannon will need to finish either second or third to take the outright lead in that competition.
Well, there's also not a full peloton left in the chase behind. The group splintered when Sarah Gigante made her attack on the Hawthorn climb. Ruby Roseman Gannon, she's done a great turn of speed there and easily accounted for Matilda Reynolds. We do know Peter Mullins is still in this group and she'll be involved in the sprint at the finish.
Maeve Plouffe now rolling through to slow things down from Team Garmin Australia. She's a teammate of Sarah Gigante. Second spot, the white jersey, the Focus Best Young Rider classification. That's Neve Bradbury. She's got that jersey on loan. You won't believe it. Sarah's leading that competition also.
With 10 kilometres to go, we look over Oakbank Racetrack. Very famous for its Easter steeplechase racing. Lots of colour at that festival as well. Something that South Australia is very well known for, all of its festivals.
Have you been to the event?
I've been more for the dressing up.
Have you been to a horse racing event and not seen a horse race?
Yes.
Affirmative over here, yep.
I've seen a horse on the bottle of beverage that I have consumed, as we look now at footage of Alex Manley and rider number 31 Laura Luxford of the women's specialised racing team.
Laura was really strong yesterday on the climb, and now she's chasing to try and limit the gains of Sarah Gigante. Number 5, Alex Manley, one of Australia's leading track cyclists, making that transition of juggling ambitions on the track and on the road. She's riding a different bike to the rest of the team. She's on the Argon 18.
She is on the Argon 18. That's because she will have been a part of the national program, being heavily involved in the track program. Argon are the official sponsor of the Australian track cycling team and working closely with them and providing the best bike possible for, well, the Tokyo Olympics should they go ahead, or maybe even Paris in 2024.
Meanwhile, the Bike Exchange team, which was previously known as Mitchelton Scott, they've had a bike change this year, and they're on one of the great traditional brands in cycling, the Italian bikes of Bianchi. A look down at what is left of the peloton. There were a few riders yesterday that didn't make it through to the finish. In fact, there were 3 riders that did not finish yesterday, but there'll be a big group of them further back down the road, just looking forward to getting back to the hotel. This has been a hot, hard day of racing. Number 3, that is Lucy Kennedy. She started today as the protected rider from Bike Exchange, and we heard the interview with her before the stage got started. Oh, it should be a day for the sprinters I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Never underestimate Sarah.
Never underestimate the course. It's been designed by Kimberly Conti and Stuart O'Grady as well. Yesterday, a lot were saying it should be a sprint. The Mangler Hill, it's not that tough. It's not that big a climb.
And they're going up the easy side.
Both races split to pieces. And then today, has it been a lumpy day? From the outset, there's been talk of it's a lumpy stage. It's not that straightforward. Little pinch on the way into the finish in Lobethal. And it's no easy feat to get to the finish with the lead bunch, and especially when Sarah Gigante starts with the bunch, you know all she wants to do is split it to pieces.
Yeah, and now this is Sarah Roy, who is at the front, who, if things had have gone to script, would have been one of the favourites to win the stage yesterday and today. And we'd look at the course and you think, okay, those 2 days, this is probably what happens, and it's all going to be decided on Wollonga Hill.
Last time check, 2:10. They've taken 15 seconds off Sarah Gigante. They're on a section of road, really wide open, flat, maybe just that little bit of breeze coming in to the face of Sarah Gigante, and the numbers behind and the distance, the fatigue start to set in a little bit. It's normal that you'd start to see a little bit of your advantage wiped off, but she's well inside 10 kilometres to go. They will not catch her.
She is. She'll lose a little bit of time in these last 10 kilometres, but we saw yesterday with Luke Durbridge, he did all that work, he established the lead, it was like a good investment strategy, he got money in the bank early. He did concede a bit of ground in the last 10Ks, but he still won by almost 2.5 minutes.
You can just start to see the first signs of that fatigue coming in. Sarah Gigante now, the hips rocking a little bit more, the shoulders side to side a little bit more. Just on the radio to the team car, maybe asking how much do I still have? Are they taking any time off me? Little bit of breeze out there, but no wind as such.
Bakery's open, but she has to wait. She's not far away from the finish line. With a performance like this, she's riding here for the Garmin Australian national team. In terms of the professional trade team she rides for, it's the TIPCO team based out of the United States of America. At what point does Bike Exchange or another one of the big World Tour teams sit up and take notice and say, hey, how do we get her signature on a contract?
A year ago?
Yeah, like Robbie said, they're going to be paying a pretty penny, I think, to get the final sign on the dotted line from Sarah Gigante as we head towards the finish in Lobethal. Lobethal, one of the hard hit places of the Adelaide Hills throughout the fires of late 2019, early 2020. And I saw in one of those last vignettes that the Lobethal Beer House was there. We'll see the men go over Fox Creek. The women won't go over Fox Creek, but also some great mountain biking. So we see the time elapsed from this race stage so far, 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
And Anna, the community's done a wonderful job of supporting this race. It's not the international race that they're accustomed to, but they've come out, they've decorated the town, they're on board with the National Road Series. But you know what they're getting? They're getting the chance to see international level racing, and this could be a little bit like going to a pub in Liverpool and seeing a band called the Beatles just getting started, because Sarah Gigante is about to conquer the world over the next few years.
And how many stories going forward are we going to be? I was at the Lobethal Bakery and I saw Sarah Gigante in the 2021 Santos Festival of Cycling gap World Tour team Bike Exchange by over 2 minutes.
In years to come, people could be saying, I knew back then she was going to be a champion.
I might even get the ones where, I don't know if you've had it, I pumped your tyres at an under 15 track carnival in Queensland. Do you remember me? I'm like, oh, thanks for that.
I get more than once. Remember me? I beat you when you first started racing.
This is Laura Luxford, who is at the front. She's had a bit of a break from racing. She's made a significant return, doing a lot of the pacemaking for the specialised women's racing team. Behind her, Alex Manley, then Sarah Roy. Grace Brown has been doing a lot of the chasing, and last in line for the Bike Exchange team, that is Lucy Kennedy, who started today's stage looking as a genuine threat to win this race overall. She will have to put in the ride of her life tomorrow up Wollonga Hill to claw back this time on Sarah Gigante.
And we've talked about this long-range move by Sarah Gigante today and how fatiguing that can be with tomorrow looming with the climb up Wollonga Hill, but it is only a 48-kilometre stage.
And she's only got 5 kilometres to go today.
And I think if her powers are recovery, anything like her powers on the bike in this stage, no problem.
She'll be up for an evening stage. She'll be ready to go tonight. She'll be happy to go down to one of the local criteriums. 5Ks to go for Sarah Gigante. So smooth. The body language has looked the same the whole way through. Bike Exchange, they're stringing the peloton out. They will claw some of the time back, but I still think it's going to be a convincing win for Sarah Gigante. This is Sarah Roy, and look at the hips rocking and rolling back in the saddle. Behind her, now rolling through Grace Brown, 5th at the World Championships last year in the individual time trial. The pace is really on back in the peloton. They're going quickly. It's just Sarah has been even faster, and the gap still 2:10.
And look at the speed they're riding. The effort it takes to hold that speed on the front. You saw Sarah Roy swing off, and you just had to stop pedalling for a moment, try and catch your breath, let the lactic acid level go down. But it's 5 against 1, and she's holding them. It's quite incredible.
I get the feeling we'll be talking about this performance in years to come, reflecting when she gets other big results on the international stage, Sarah Gigante. As you mentioned before, Robbie, saying, remember when.
Well, we go back to the Tour de Tweed back in November when Sarah Gigante attacked with 55 kilometres to go in the NRS race, won by 7 minutes. People said, yes, impressive, it was a great ride. Okay, but it was NRS. There was no riders of international level. There was no Bike Exchange there, for example. Maybe she heard those comments.
And look at the grimace on the face of Sarah Roy as she comes to the front. As soon as she gets to the front, she's looking over her shoulder for another option. That's a nice way to go about it on the recumbent.
And on one of the many pedestrian and bike paths that you can find throughout the Adelaide Hills, in particular the Amy Gillett Bikeway. And there is hundreds of kilometres of bike path that you can actually ride and be off the roads.
Yep, Adelaide just absolutely renowned for being one of the best places to ride in all of Australia. Just its cycling facilities, the Adelaide Hills, the myriad of roads that are rideable up here. And that's why every year Adelaide gets so many visitors, especially around the time of Tour Down Under. And so many riders like to come down, watch the racing, but just ride themselves and ride the courses the day before or the day after. They ride the same courses the pros have ridden.
Yeah, the riding is exceptional. At the 3 kilometre mark, almost 3 kilometres to go for Sarah Gigante, the gap is still at 2 minutes, and it looks as if the momentum has gone out of the peloton. There's still a fair bit of work at the front being done by Grace Brown, but lining up behind her, 2 of the teammates of Sarah Gigante who hits that 3 kilometre marker right now.
Shoulders starting to rock and roll, fatigue starting to set in, slight incline here that she's going up as she passes that 3 kilometre banner to the finish line. That will be a welcome sight for her. And we talked about how much this may have taken out of the tank of Sarah Gigante ahead of tomorrow's Be Safe, Be Seen stage up Wollonga Hill. It will also have taken some out of the legs of Lucy Kennedy.
Well, any of the riders back in that main peloton, Lucy Kennedy amongst them, so too Ruby Roseman Gannon, and perhaps even Carly Taylor, or the race leader Peter Mullins. This drag across the last 3 kilometres, they need to get busy, and get busy real quick.
Now, this is a section where they can potentially take some time back, but as Sarah Gigante out of the saddle, just keeping that rhythm high. It doesn't look like much on screen, but it's a really solid uphill drag, this section, through the last couple of Ks. She'll get to the top, it dips down, and then she's got another little drag uphill into Lobethal itself. But the stage win and the leader's jersey, for mine, that is an absolute done deal.
She still holds on to a lead of 2 minutes and 5 seconds. She's into the outskirts of Lobethal, who have done an amazing job supporting this event. The locals have really thrown their support behind it. Plenty of them have gone to the side of the road. They've done the normal decorations that they do throughout the Santos Tour Down Under, and they're doing it for the Santos Festival of Cycling.
I think that's as close as we're going to get as a grimace from Sarah Gigante.
And behind, the reaction is coming. This is Anya Lowe, who's now taken the race by the scruff of the neck. Another one of the youngsters. She went through the juniors with Sarah Gigante, so she knew exactly what she was up against on the Hawthorn climb. She tried to stick with her. Specialised women racing behind her, but she can't do it on her own. She needs much more support.
Team Bike Exchange almost forfeiting the front of this peloton, unable to keep the pace going. And the other teams now have stepped forward to say, OK, let's see if we can contribute to close this gap down. Specialised Women's Racing will be working to bring that gap down for Matilda Reynolds and ARA for Ruby Roseman Gallen.
Anya Lowe at the front, Robbie. If it wasn't for the performance of Sarah Gigante, at Anya's age, we'd be talking about how fantastic her performance has been the last 2 days.
And her performance has been fantastic, but Sarah Gigante's performance has just been Gigante. It's been out of this. It's been out of this world. It's been absolutely gigantic, and it doesn't matter what they've done behind. They've not managed to take more than 15 seconds back. It was an all-out effort by the riders from Bike Exchange, mixed with the riders from Specialised Women Racing, accelerations by riders from ARA Sunshine Coast, and Gigante, she is going to burst out that big grin when she gets to the finish line. She is just going to take the lot today and take this race in a headlock.
Oh, I would love to know if this was the plan or not. I'm guessing with 1 kilometre to go for Sarah Gigante, it wasn't the plan, but she made it one.
I think she just sees opportunities out there, and when it presents itself, she says, well, I'll have a go, and then sees what happens next. She's very spontaneous in the way she rides and just loves to hurt herself, which in turn is agony for everybody else.
This is what's left of the peloton. The blue jersey, Peter Mullins, she is still in that group. They are racing for second place. The question is, how big will the gap be for Sarah Gigante? And her bike handling skills are pretty good. She's coming down to this tight left-hand turn, and then she'll be able to see the finish line. She's distanced the motorbike.
Safely through the corner, Sarah Gigante. She's back on the race radio to team director. The information she'd be getting, I don't know if it's much more information anymore, as much as just congratulations. This has been phenomenal.
500 metres remaining for Sarah Gigante, and she is riding this all the way through to the finish line, maximising her time gains. A little check across the shoulder. It won't be time for celebration until she gets right there on the line. She's thinking about the overall classification. It is time to celebrate.
Little wave to the fans.
Super Sarah. A Gigante performance. She wins stage 2.
And there's that smile that she is all too familiar for. It's almost like she crosses the line and race face is gone.
And now the clock starts. We wait to see just how big the gap is. High fives all round for Sarah Gigante. Phenomenal. Well, she'll be the leader of the Queen of the Mountains competition. She'll be the leader of the Best Young Rider competition. She's now the race leader overall. Depending on the placing of Ruby Roseman Gannon in the final sprint, she could also be the leader of the sprint classification. And there's nothing left. She has to get the most aggressive today also, doesn't she?
She'd have to get the most competitive rider award. I can't see any other way it could go. What an incredible ride by Sarah Gigante. Long range attack from the Hawthorn climb. That was 48 kilometres into this 97 kilometre stage, so about a 50 kilometre solo ride. 5k less than she did in November at the Tour de Tweed, but the step up in class and the way she did it was wow.
Remarkable. And here's the rest of the race coming through the technical tight left-hander, and then they will have the finishing line in their sights.
And they are racing this for second place through the tight left-hand turn. They're just over 500 metres from the finish line. The battle is on for positions. A little difficult to get the lead-out train organised. The Bike Exchange team, they'll just be hoping that they can keep Lucy Kennedy up towards the front for a high placing overall. It's more than a minute and 30 seconds since Sarah Gigante was in. Her teammates are trying to make it a 1-2-3. Nettie Edmondson is there and Kudanov, but it's Peter Mullins who bursts on through. Yesterday's stage winner, Mullins in second or not. Third for Peter Mullins.
I think it was Ankudinov who came back through the middle. It looked like in that track sprinting style in the saddle, big power, but Mullins comes through, takes bonus seconds, but it certainly won't be enough to defend that leader's jersey. That is long gone and onto the shoulders of Sarah Gigante.
And Nettie Edmondson, by the looks of it, from the national... Georgia Baker it was.
Well, they're all fast.
They're all fast. They've all got the same sort of physique.
Yes.
And Peter Mullins, and it looked like Georgia Baker was done. Peter Mullins had the momentum and got in front, and then Georgia Baker fought back. Second place for her. So a 1-2 for Team Garmin Australia.
And importantly, took away some of the bonus times available.
Let's head down to the stage winner, Sarah Gigante.
Sarah Gigante, Garmin Australia, what a ride. All the way from Birdwood to Lobethal. How do you feel right now?
Oh, pretty exhausted, but that was so much fun. I just can't believe that firstly, I didn't think I'd be able to get away solo on the climb, so that was just amazing when I crested the climb and I saw I dropped Ruby in particular. I was really worried about for GC. She's so strong in the sprints, but also on the climbs. And then also there was no one from Team Back Exchange, so Grace Brown and Lucy Kennedy couldn't quite come over the top with us. So yeah, when I saw I crested with just the two riders from the breakaway, Bree Wilson and Chelsea Holmes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, so exciting. What do I do? And well, the only reason I love cycling, I love going hard, so that was my logical solution. I couldn't quite, I think my radio kept falling out, so I was like, I don't really have instructions, but I think I'm meant to just keep going, so yeah, in the end I just had to go solo. I left those two behind and just time trialled home, and I could hear some great encouragement when I did put my radio back in. Yeah, Donna was amazing from the team car, and I knew that my team from behind was super strong and so supportive, covering all the moves for me.
And you did it with a smile on your face. You even had time to wave to the cameras during that ride. Was it that relaxing for you?
No, it wasn't relaxing, but I waved because Donna had just told me that my teammates on Team Tipico Silicon Valley Bank were watching, and I know that for some of them it's pretty late at night, so yeah, thanks to my teammates for watching.
And just Sarah, obviously, was that part of the plan?
I mean, the plan was for me to go hard over that QOM, but it was a long way out. So our first, realistic plan was probably for the sprint or maybe a late flyer. There was a climb coming in with 3K to go that we were thinking maybe, Nettie or I could maybe launch on. But, I mean, our hopeful plan was for me to get away on the climb. But, I certainly didn't think it would work, but I tried and it did work.
So tomorrow, Wollonga Hill, McLaren Vale, Wollonga Hill. So how do you think you'll fare there?
I definitely love hills, so I'm sure I'll have a blast. I don't know how I'll go, especially after that long time trial effort, but I'll give it a go, and yeah, I'm just so excited.
Brilliant. Enjoy the day.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to have a go at how she'll go tomorrow. Quicker than everybody else.
When she said, I don't know how it'll go tomorrow, I do. I think everybody else thinks they do too.
This was the final moments for Sarah. She went across the finish line. It was just the last 25 metres or so that she allowed herself to celebrate. She had time to do so. More than a 2-minute gain today.
Yes, we got a nice smile from her at one point, a wave to the fans as she comes over the line, hands in the air, knowing that her teammates from Team Saxo Tinko were watching. And what a great little interview. I just felt warm and fuzzy all over. Wanted to give her a hug, but not on the road.
And this was the sprint for the minor placings. The blue jersey, Peter Mullins. We hadn't seen her all day, but she pops up when it counts right at the end in the battle for second position.
Yeah, she's coming through on the right-hand side of the road, the light blue jersey. At one stage, she was shoulder to shoulder with a rider in the middle, and I think that was Ash Ankudinov. She got her way past. In fact, it was Georgia Baker who then hit the turbo, and it was a length between the two when they came across the line. So 1-2 for Garmin Australia and Peter Mullins. She loses the leader's jersey, but she is still in second overall and took some bonus seconds.
And in fourth position, as she was yesterday, was Matilda Reynolds. One of the teammates of Sarah Gigante, Maeve Plouffe. Let's get her view on what happened today.
Well, Maeve Plew from Garmin Australia going to the Tokyo Games. You look like you had absolute fun out there, especially with Sarah Gigante at the front.
She is an absolute talent. She made our job very easy today because as soon as she went off the front on that climb, we did not have to do an ounce of work. It was all up to the other teams to try and bring her back, and she was just too strong.
Was that part of the game plan for today's stage?
Yeah, we kept a leash on her yesterday up Mengler's Hill, but we knew she was capable of a lot more. So we gave her permission today to unleash and go as hard as she could up that climb with the goal of getting away and getting some time up.
And she really did unleash. So what was the talk going on behind in the peloton? Obviously to control everybody.
For our team, we were just focused completely on controlling and to try and get the best result again in the sprint at the end, which we ended up doing with Georgia Baker in second, I believe. But there was a bit of panic with the other teams. They were desperately negotiating who was going to do the chase, and we were just laughing to ourselves because we knew that Sarah was pretty strong. So, yeah, it was hard though.
And tomorrow, McLaren Vale, Wollonga Hill. So what are you expecting there from the team and obviously to protect Sarah Gigante?
Well, we know that Sarah can back up day after day, so we have full confidence in her. We also have a couple of other little climbers up our sleeves, and we've got some absolute powerhouses that we can burn up towards the bottom of the climb. So our goal is to get up there as quickly as possible.
Who do you have to keep an eye on?
There's a fair few climbers actually in the group. We've got Nicole Frayne from Sydney Uni. Their specialised girls are all great climbers, all of them. We have a couple of girls from the Bike Exchange team who are climbing really well. There's an alarming number of climbers actually in the group, and I think we're going to be setting some pretty blistering times up Wollonga, which will be the benchmark because we've actually never raced up Wollonga Hill before, so we don't know what to expect, but I think it'll be quick.
Thanks, Maeve. Enjoy the rest of the race.
Bike Exchange Stage 2 started in Birdwood, made its way through to the wonderful town of Lobethal. And right from the very beginning, we were anticipating some aggression. And the early breakaway did try its luck once again. Sarah Gigante there in the Shimano Queen of the Mountains jersey. She was right at the front from the very start, Robbie.
As she was, but the first attack when things got underway, it was quite a surprise from the Rock Salt Livestrand team. It was Bree Wilson who went off the front. She was joined fairly quickly by Chelsea Holmes from the Giant Racing team, and that tandem, they built up a pretty handy lead by the time they got to the gravel section, the much anticipated gravel section. The pace went up in the peloton, everybody anxious to be near the front, and as they got off the other side of it, well, our front two were joined by one of the riders from the Garmin Australia national team, and it was Ashley Ankudinoff.
An interesting sprint here into Zip Track Intermediate Sprint 1. We thought Ashley Ankudinoff would challenge as she responded to Chelsea Holmes' sprint, but she hit the clutch a bit early, and now was when we saw the move by Sarah Gigante.
This was the crunch moment of the stage. On the Hawthorn climb, 50 kilometres from the finish line. Why wait for the last climb with 3Ks to go when you can go solo for 50? For a little while, Bree Wilson from Rock Salt and from the Giant team Chelsea Holmes, they stuck with Sarah Gigante. They got there over the top, but you saw her motivation over the top, the hand signal, let's work together. They would have liked to if they could have.
Yeah, there would have been many in the peloton at this moment hoping this was just for the points of the Shimano Queen of the Mountain point on the Hawthorn climb. But Sarah Gigante, she just made sure she took maximum points, and as soon as she got to the top, there was not even an inkling of easing off. She was across the line, and then she assessed the situation with a quick look over, and there's that signal. Let's ride together. Okay, one of you doesn't want to ride, the other can't ride. This is time to go solo, and this was the start of her big solo move. She'd done all the riding on the front until now anyway, and she took off.
And she didn't attack them. She was just too strong for them.
She was too strong, and that strength certainly came into the play for the final almost 50 kilometres that we saw her riding solo. And because she was so strong, she got the okay from her DS, Donna Ray-Zielinski, to keep on with it.
She is the Australian individual time trial champion, and for the following 45 kilometres, she showed exactly why.
Well, she just held them at bay. She had the peloton at 6s and 7s. She'd blown a lot of riders right out the back. It took a long time for an organised chase to form, but once it did, they just weren't taking time off her. She defended it all the way into the finish in Lobethal, and great to see some green shoots emerging around the town of Lobethal, and it's also a new race leader that emerges here at the finish. Sarah Gigante, she will be in the Santos Blue Leaders jersey.
Sarah Gigante taking the win by 1 minute and 54 seconds ahead of Georgia Baker. It was then Peter Mullins, the former race leader, followed by Matilda Reynolds, and Edmondson, Ruby Roseman Gannon, Amber Pate, Laura Luxford, Alexandra Manley, and Lizzie Stannard in 10th position. So for Sarah Gigante, she now moves into the lead of all classifications. She's collected enough points to take the zip track sprint classification lead. She is the overall race leader now by more than 2 minutes because of the time bonuses in there as well. This has been an extraordinary performance by Sarah Gigante, obviously the best young rider in the race, and the Shimano, the Queen of the Mountains. In fact, I think Peter Mullins will be just inside 2 minutes behind her.
Yeah, this is the stage result, and if you look at the teammates of Sarah Gigante, Georgia Baker in 2nd, Annette Edmondson in 5th. So what a day out for the Garmin national team. And you've got to say, I don't think Peter Mullins the big loser of the day. They just could not do any better against the force that is Sarah Gigante. But it is surprising that the World Tour team of Bike Exchange could not keep things under control.
This is the sort of question, Anna, that I think you would have liked to have had on your school exams. Who was the rider of the day?
Who was the rider of the day? There's no argument in it. It's Sarah Gigante.
It was an exceptional performance by Sarah Gigante. And we heard from her afterwards, and she spoke about the prospect of attacking at that climb with 3 kilometres to go, but she just went so early. It was extraordinary.
It was extraordinary. She said she wasn't sure. She didn't think she could pull it off from there. I think she's just trying to be modest and humble in the interview, because the way she went over the top, it looked there was no doubt in her mind that she could do it from there. And watching her do it, we never doubted that she was going to stay away.
No doubt and no fear. That's what I love about the type of rider that Sarah Gigante is. She just loves to hurt when the road goes up, and hurt not just her own legs but hurt the whole peloton. We did get to see a moment where she gave us a little smile, big smile there as she double hand saluted across the finish line in Lobethal. Be very interesting. She really has thrown a cat amongst the pigeons now as we look towards stage 3 of the Be Safe, Be Seen Wollonga Hill stage. We saw Maeve Plouffe actually comment about how she's looking forward to that. Interestingly, Maeve Plouffe, the first time she rode up Wollonga Hill, she was 13 years of age. It was a come and try event. She did it in her sneakers. She sprinted for the first 100 metres, and then, as she said, I died for the rest of it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how she goes tomorrow. I think she'll be a little bit quicker up there tomorrow. She'll have a job on her hands defending the overall race lead. Sarah Gigante with the 1 minute and 53 second advantage over Peter Mullins. It's 1:57 to her former clubmate. Well, she's still clubmates with her, Ruby Roseman Gannon. Then it's Nicole Frayne, Matilda Reynolds, Neve Bradbury, her teammate. She'll be key support rider tomorrow on the climb of Wollonga Hill. Laura Luxford, Lizzie Stannard, then it is Daniela Di Francesco and Lucy Kennedy of Bike Exchange in 10th position. For Bike Exchange, they need to win the stage tomorrow. I'm convinced that they can't win this race overall. Sarah has the team, she has the legs to defend that advantage. Lucy Kennedy or maybe Grace Brown, they need to look for the stage victory on the Queen stage.
Now, I think on a short stage like that, 48 kilometres, the firepower that Sarah Gigante has at her command with her teammates, I think they can hold everything together to the bottom of the climb. I don't see anybody capable of going with Sarah Gigante on the climb. I think she will win Wollonga Hill wearing the leader's jersey, and it'll be a case of who's best of the rest. Lucy Kennedy will try and move herself up from 10th onto the podium and try and win the stage, but after today's display, it was just so dominant. I don't see how anybody else can beat Gigante.
Yeah, particularly with that advantage to be able to defend. Let's now take a look at the course for stage 3. The course for stage 3, it is relatively short. It's just 48 kilometres, and it is an opportunity to enjoy not just McLaren Vale, Wollonga Hill, but also it is famous, this stage, for riding alongside the beach.
Yep, Aldinga Beach, it's always, especially on a hot day, it's always a nice place to get to. They start down in McLaren Vale and down McLaren Flat Road, sometimes a bit of crosswind down there, out to Aldinga Beach, along the beachfront, through the Zip Track Sprint at Snapper Point, and then away from the cooler air beachside and back into the McLaren Vale, through the vineyards. It's one big lap, and then the beast, Wollonga Hill, 3 kilometres. It's the domain of Richie Port, but now, for the first time, our women's field get to tackle Wollonga Hill.
That course profile, Anna, it's really pleasant until they get back to Wollonga Hill. And I think that is the sort of climb actually that really suits Sarah Gigante. So even though she's done that big performance today and she'll have the big target on her back, I think she's the favourite to win the stage.
Yes, I agree with you. The course profile does look very pleasant, as it will look on Aldinga Beach when they go by there. But up Wollonga Hill, like you said, I don't think anyone is going to be able to match Sarah Gigante, as we saw when she made her move today in the Shimano Queen of the Mountains climb. Ruby Rose McGowan could not hold her wheel. So one of her biggest challenges proved today, Sarah Gigante is just too strong.
She is. Let's now hear from the race director who designed the course, Kimberly Conti, and her thoughts on Stage 3.
Stage 3, the classic Wollonga climb. So everyone knows, of course, that's Richie Port's territory for the women. This will be their first opportunity to see who will be Queen of the Mountain this time. And again, this stage wanders through some of those beautiful wineries to the McLaren Vale, past the beautiful ocean views that we see and where we know so much about from prior Tour Down Under races. For those of us that are watching the race, of course, so nice to see whether you're here or overseas. Of course, for the riders, their primary focus is going to be that climb and who gets up first.
And who gets up first? As we mentioned earlier on, Lucy Kennedy, this will be a big day for her. But just back to Sarah and the fact that she didn't get to race internationally really in 2020, and it looks like she might have some troubles doing so in 2021 as well as COVID continues along. I can't wait to see her in Europe racing.
Now, I'm really looking forward to how she can measure up against the big stars of the sport, and the rides she's put together. Today, that's been her best yet. But to see her go toe-to-toe with the likes of Anna van der Breggen, for example, multiple world champion.
Marianne Vos.
The stars of the sport, I think it won't be long until they're seeing the back of Sarah Gigante.
Let's now go down to yesterday's stage winner, Peter Mullins.
Okay. Peter Mullins from Rock Salt Live SRAM. You have to donate that jersey back, the leader's jersey, but it was brilliant while you had it. How did you find today?
Yeah, great. I think our team were amazing. Bree going off the front. We didn't want to ride to defend the jersey. We wanted to be aggressive, and she raced to perfection, really. I mean, Sarah went across on that climb, and if Bree was as good as Sarah, she would have been able to hold the wheel, and it would have been a really good play at the final. But Sarah was just 10 times better than the rest of the field, and she had some strong World Tour riders chopping off behind her, and she just kept putting in more time, and we were kind of turning to each other saying, how is she still riding away? Like the speed she must have had up the road. So kudos, I'm happy to hand the jersey to that effort.
Was that ride tougher than expected, do you think?
No, I think the courses here, they just accumulate in your legs. They get heavier and heavier, and the heat gets hotter, and the dehydration and the nutrition is so important throughout the day. And it was really on the last sort of 40k, and yeah, I thought the finish would actually be a little bit tougher, but out on the road when Grace and Lucy and the girls were swapping off, it was solid.
Did you catch the news of Sarah Gigante just streaking away throughout the stage?
Yeah, I actually watched her up the road when she'd gone across to Chelsea and Bree, and they were sitting on her, and she just kept digging and digging and digging, and it was just a matter of time before she rode away. Just a class act, really.
Just your teammates. It's a lot of them are brand new to the team, and you're the guide. How are they working?
Yeah, I was really proud when Bree was off the front. They rode to perfection, covering the right moves and being in the right position, and they're just learning so much so quickly. I was sitting back at the back of the bunch just watching them going, I'm such a proud mum.
And tomorrow, McLaren Vale, Wollonga Hill for the first time. A bit of a challenge. Have you taken that hill before?
Yeah, a couple of times riding up to watch Richie Port. I don't reckon we'll be tackling it with that much speed, but I'm really excited to watch the women race up it, or be part of the women racing up it, I should say. And Carly Taylor's come back from her retirement, and I'm hoping that she can have good legs for the climb tomorrow.
So how did she hold up today?
Yeah, really good. She hasn't been in a peloton in a couple of years, and it's all quite new to her, and I don't want the pressure to be too much, but I want her to get some confidence out of a ride like tomorrow on that course, pre-national championships.
Beautiful. Thanks, Peter. Good luck with the rest of the race.
So positive, Peter Mullins, despite losing the jersey, recognising the performance of Sarah Gigante. But she made a really good point about Brie Wilson. If Brie had been able to stick with Sarah, she'd be in a commanding second position overall.
Yeah, she would be. What could have been. But as she said, she could look up the road and just see Sarah just keep digging away at them. Every little rise, she would just dig a little bit deeper, and you could just see them hurting with every single acceleration Gigante made. They were getting in more and more trouble, and suddenly there was a huge gap. It was done.
And although Peter Mullins concedes the leader's jersey, we're going to see plenty of her in action tomorrow in support of Carly Taylor, who will be their main contender going up Wollonga Hill. So it's going to be a really interesting stage tomorrow. You've got Carly Taylor, you've got the strength of Sarah Gigante's Team Garmin Australia, and you've also got Bike Exchange with Lucy Kennedy. They need this win. They haven't pulled anything yet.
Let's get down to the presentation where it will be all Sarah Gigante.
Welcome to the winners' presentation for Bike Exchange Stage 2 of the 2020 Santos Festival of Cycling. Please now welcome onto the stage Adelaide Hills Council Mayor Jan Claire Wisdom. Jan's joining me to present the Bike Exchange Stage 2 winner. And the winner of Bike Exchange Stage 2 is Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. Thank you, Mayor Jan Claire Wisdom, and congratulations to our Bike Exchange Stage 2 winner, Sarah Gigante. And now for the winner of the SouthAustralia.com Most Competitive Rider. Please welcome to the stage Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. Congratulations, Sarah. And what a fantastic bike race and stage it's turned out to be today. Adelaide Hills certainly brought on the best of the weather for us. Now, the winner of the Focus Young Rider jersey, please congratulate Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. Wow. Both hands up in the air. It's certainly Sarah's time to shine. Congratulations, Sarah Gigante. And Interflora, of course, are the flower experts. They're the people behind the beautiful bouquets of flowers being presented to our winners here today. Now, to continue with today's presentations, we're joined by ZipTrack's Executive Director, Mark DeMeyer. Now, Mark will present the ZipTrack Sprint jersey. And the winner is Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. Oh, what a spectacular presentation. And thank you, Mark, and congratulations, Sarah. And now I'd like to bring Rob Harris, event manager from Shimano, up to the stage to help me with Shimano Queen of the Mountain presentations. Please come up, Rob. Well done, Rob. Let's move on to the Shimano Queen of the Mountain jersey. Congratulations, Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia. Well done, Sarah. Thank you, Rob, and congratulations to Sarah. Now I guess it's time to present the Santos Leaders jersey after Bike Exchange Stage 2. Please welcome back to the stage from Adelaide Hills Council, Mayor Jan Claire Wisdom, please. Thanks, Jan. Great to see you out here
She
again.
went the other way.
It's all about the Bike Exchange Stage 2 and the Santos Leaders jersey. And the winner is Sarah Gigante from Team Garmin Australia.
Some spectacular photos.
That was extraordinary. I was just waiting for the venue announcer maybe just to crack a joke and just say a different name once.
Yeah.
Well, she should go on the track. She was just turning left, doing circles behind the banner, and maybe they would have just adding jerseys on top of each other.
A completely dominant performance by Sarah Gigante. She leads all of the classifications and she heads into the Queen stage tomorrow with almost a 2-minute advantage on her nearest rival, Peter Mullins. We're not too far away from the men's race making a start. They're about an hour and a half before they get underway. Join Robbie McEwen, Anna Mears, myself, Matthew Keenan, then for coverage of Bike Exchange Stage 2 from the Santos Festival of Cycling. It will be the men in action from 1:20.